Like, it's just not, because we had poor John, poor John, he started, he moved from Korea back. He was from here, but he had been in Korea for 10 years.
Yeah.
Anyway, he moved back and we had said, blah, 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 whatever. Anyway, never, I don't know why. I know we had told him that we were Mac people anyway, but didn't he go, because in Korea and in Asia, iPhones are not the thing. It's
Really?
all, oh no, it's all about the Androids and the, well, yeah, because it's where they're made, right?
Yes, true.
Right, so it's like a total, like Samsung and all that, like, so he comes back and buys this, whatever, $1,500 Android, and we're like, you're gonna have to return that.
Yeah.
Because if you think I'm gonna get 8 people to switch over to a group chat on WhatsApp from iMessage,
Yeah.
that is not happening. He was like, what? And we're like, sorry, buy a used one, I don't know what to tell you, we'll give you an old one, I don't know, but you have got to get on board. Yeah. So, and I know, like, my husband's an Android user and he treats my phone like it has the plague, like, he can't, like, mind you, in the first, I can't use his, I don't know what to do. He's like, oh, just, I'm like, I can't even open it, turn on.
I use both, and it doesn't really matter which one to me. But my laptop, I can't use an Apple. I think for other people for Macs.
Yes.
I like my old fashioned, you know.
I love that there's not a single virus on the planet that exists in a Mac, no viruses.
Years, I wouldn't leave Windows. And then I left.
Forward,
And it's
back,
like one of these
Okay.
things, once you leave,
and then if it stops working, you just have to click on the side.
Okay, and what about the chat?
once you get used to it.
Yes.
Probably open that.
Yeah, and I might have for that.
My
Go
husband
with
doesn't
what you're
use it.
comfortable with.
Just keep it, you know where you want.
Yeah,
to
no,
put
that's
it.
perfect, yeah.
He doesn't know how to use
The side.
it.
Over here.
Perfect, yeah, that's great. Just that way, if someone, they'll see,
Yeah.
usually I hire you guys that, if someone's says something in the chat that you have to tell me.
Sounds good.
I've just been off the phone.
So right now I have 1 human online, is that what I have? Or am I-
Nice be nuts.
Yeah,
And it's in for a month.
so far it's just Nishta's online.
Okay.
And I,
Morning, Nisha, can you hear us?
I'm gonna move in.
Yes, I can.
Oh, she's coming.
Good
through here.
morning.
Okay, thank you. And you can turn that up if you want to. Okay. Okay, so we're just gonna wait a couple more minutes, I think, to get going. Although we are technically on time, we are dealing with realtors here, so we'll give it a minute.
No problem.
I said, so it's a
Good
very-
morning. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing okay.
Excellent. So,
Yeah, I've been busy, but good.
oh, that's awesome. We're gonna give it a couple more minutes just to get people in and sorted.
No problem.
We're off. Oh, yeah, that's great, how are you?
How's your night been so far? Oh, good. What's your favorite lesson so far?
This one.
Oh, that's a good call.
I didn't finish saying the rest.
I'm finding all the lead gen, all this, that, and that. Great.
Yeah,
This is where I want to get into it.
right, the conversion.
Yeah.
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 That's a whole other skill. Yeah.
Right.
so we're gonna talk-
I wish there was a course. Because I have somebody I want to put into an agreement as a buyer.
Yeah,
I wish there was a course that says, okay, start with this form, this form, this form, this form. That's where I've struggled. Where do I give them first? I know working with real,
right.
and then there's FinTrack, and then there's something about not being a politician.
That's also FinTrack. There's also that you have to not be a Canadian.
That, right.
I don't understand the double negative. I'm so sorry. Like, I certify that I'm not. I'm not.
You have a party.
Legal jargon.
Anyway,
Yeah.
it's fine. It's fine. So. Yes, well, and if you have questions of stuff like that, if we have time, we'll answer them. We'll go through them. No problem. I don't. I mean, you all know I can talk. That's not a problem, but I don't know that I have 3 hours of content on this particular subject, so.
Don't go 3 hours.
Like,
2.
Unless there's lots of questions.
Yeah, so if there is something else you want to squirrel into, just let me know and we'll.
It's usually.
Yeah.
I mean, not that 4 people is not important, but we'll give it another minute, because again, we are dealing with realtors.
Does that mean we're slow?
Typically late.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it'll change.
Yeah. it's-
Oh, okay. so much pressure to be on time or early.
Well, I mean, we really appreciate it when you're on time. Good morning, Suzanne.
Oh, they're on time.
No, we were just actually, she was just saying, oh, I'm always early. And I said, she said, is it something? I said, oh, it's realtors. And she said, oh, I'm always on time. I said, it'll change. Now, at the same time, we're very obsessed about being on time for our clients,
Yeah.
but not each other. Because we all assume everybody just understands that I'm a bit of a squirrel. My husband, God love him, retired military. So and I'm an Army brat and my first husband was military. I get it. Like I lived it since I existed. But his version of on time and early and my version of on time and early,
Yes.
right?
It is on
Before,
time.
like now when you go to the airport, you actually do need to be there the 2 hours before because it's just such a, you know what? But before COVID, you did not have to be there the 3 hours as written in the fine print of your thing to fly to Toronto.
An hour away.
Like,
Yeah.
there's no way in the possible that the Halifax airport is gonna take me 3 hours
I
to
know,
get
right?
through. So, but I mean, dealing with his anxiety over not being there in time was not worth, so I'm like, well, as long as I can drink while we're waiting, there's nothing else to do here for 3 hours.
On time means early. No.
And I'm okay with early, but there's early and there's like foolishness. Let's be very clear about this. I was away, was I? I don't know, I was somewhere and he was going to be going to the airport he went last week to Toronto with his best friend to go watch a hockey game. And I couldn't tell you the last time he's flown without me, like I literally couldn't tell you. And he was telling me at the time he was gonna leave to pick up his friend and it was quite late, like for him, like it was gonna be like the hour and a half range when he got there. And I said, really? Like, are you sure? Like, I can actually hear the stress in your voice when you're talking about, he's like, I think I'm gonna have to go earlier. I said, then go earlier. I'm not getting dragged into this. It's fine, go early. Okay, so. Good morning, Cyril. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, and good morning.
Good morning. Okay, well, we are going to get started because I'm only prepared to wait for squirrels so long, and if other people join, they join. So I put the chat up on the screen, and so my lovely guests in front of me are going to tell me if you text something in the chat, and of course, you're welcome to just unmute yourself and throw in with everybody else, okay? First of all, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate the commitment that you're putting into your business. And I know it's a lot of time for this particular course, but it is worth it. And I truly believe that this is a program that it shouldn't just be new agents. Honestly, it really shouldn't be because there's tricks and not tricks, but tips and skills that you can always enhance. It's the same question as, for example, I'm going to family reunion with apparently 35 or 40 of my closest KW Select friends. I couldn't tell you how many conferences I've been to in my 20 years. 100, maybe, I don't know. I have no idea. Morning. I have no idea. Literally no idea. And people say to me, how come you're going? If you're teaching, like, why are you going to a class on listings? It's a fair question. And the answer I would give you is being learning based is, in my opinion, the #1 skill and asset you can bring to your business as a professional realtor. Those that are stuck in, this is how we did it 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 5 years ago, or even 5 minutes ago, and it's changed, doesn't help you build your business. And as your business changes, you will learn different things on any given subject because you're in a different headspace. So when you're newer, you're looking at the foundational pieces that, you know, like what would be considered maybe the extravagant skill part of that. You're like, oh no, don't talk to me about that part yet. But then once you've got the base done, then when you go to the class, you hear the next part. Does that make sense to everybody? So I encourage you, regardless of how long you're in the business and how much volume you do, that if you ever have an opportunity to, even if it's sections of courses, like to please come back, please keep sharp, for lack of a better analogy. And you also never know who's in the room and who's going to have that brilliant idea that you go, oh, gosh. I went to a conference in November and they were talking about Google reviews. Well, we all know we want Google reviews, right? Everybody wants Google reviews. You want good Google reviews. Let me quantify that statement. And so there's all these classes. I've taken them at KW, but when do you ask for the Google review? You know, et cetera, et cetera. What's the timing? Blah, blah, blah. So this person's standing there and they're talking about that. And then they also talk about trying to create the engagement to get your people to actually give you the review. And then the person says to the audience, so how many Google reviews do you give?
Yeah.
Do your clients own businesses, perform services? Have you reviewed them? No, but you want them to review you. Yep.
That's a good point.
But it was just like, your brain just went. For fudge's sake is what I'll say. But anyone that knows me knows, that's not what I'm really saying. So it's one of those things where I've been doing this 20 years. I go to this class and I go, oh my God, why is that so brilliant? Never thought of it. That's my point, right? So we're always learning. And that's what I love to have about you guys in this class. So today's class is about win the buyer. And this particular section is really about conversion, is what I'm taking from the content, about how do you get the human that you're meeting to actually hire you and write a contract. Fair? Because as you were mentioning previously, lead generation's great. Now what do I do with them? Right? It's like, oh God, I'm pregnant. Oh God, now what do I do? There's that. But it's that whole next piece of how do we transition this person to be loyal, and how do you filter them and go through that. So what we're going to do in your session, some of you have had me teach you before, some of you have not. I am not a very good slide follower. I'm going to first tell you that. I tend to just talk to you and try to teach you. And if I happen to line up with what happens to be on the slide, yay! But I will not be reading very little or anything to you. I also would like this to be interactive so that if you do have questions or you want us to stop at something, if it's not the right moment, then we'll just put it on the board and we'll come back to it. But I don't want this to be just blah, blah, blah. I want you guys to get what you need from the time you're spending with me today. Okay, so I'm just gonna double check. Oh, we have Cole who has joined us. Welcome. Okay, so in theory, I'm going to work the slides. Oh, I did it. Look at me. Ah, that's not what I really need to do. Bear with me, people. Okay. Okay, so you're all in charge of watching the chat box for me.
Can't see it, but somebody else, I'm sure can.
What is it?
It's this right here.
Oh, there.
Well, if you see something new,
It was green.
yeah, just let me know. I did, and or the person can unmute themselves. I just don't. I just don't want anybody online to get ignored. And if you're online and you can't hear something I say, please let me know. Or if you can't hear a question being asked by someone in the room, please also let me know. Okay, so. I move this up here. So. A lot of Pete. So lead generation, lead follow-up, transaction. We're in that spot between the lead follow-up and the transaction and getting them to that place based on your little chart of where we just were, the one I said I don't care about. Potentially going to annoy the hell out of me. There we go. So it's about, we're at this section of win the seller, win the buyers, etc., negotiate blah, blah, blah. So if we go through. Sorry, one second. Probably not. When you're working with a buyer, what are some of the challenges that you run into in getting them to have a consultation with you? What are the challenges that you get on getting them to say, yes, you're my gal?
Why do we need a why do we need to bother meeting?
Why do we need to bother? I just want to see the house.
Yeah, I think I was gonna say kind of what you're saying, where
Right.
they don't necessarily have the understanding of what's involved in the process.
Right.
And like what we deal with the commission and why things need to be in writing and agency and all that kind of stuff.
All of that jazz,
Yeah.
right? So, but this is a great question. For those of you in the room, do all of you or any of you have a buyer consultation process right now? No? Do my people online, anybody? Does anybody online have a buyer consultation process or an objection specifically related to a buyer choosing you that you want to jump in on? If you don't, that's okay.
Cyril here.
Yep.
Usually what I do if I know that they're ready, is I will meet with them and take them through my folder and just let them know what we can offer them and then
Right,
work on getting them to sign, a BDBA.
right. Do you have is there any concerns or challenges? I'm writing on the flip chart, with respect to that you're running into in getting them to want to sit down with you? Now, I do need to quantify for a second because Cyril is on the CRT team and they have part of their business model is that they have a lead generation person who has done some of the vetting for some of the business that they receive. It doesn't make it less difficult for the agents sitting at the table, but I guess it's also looking at your own lead gen outside of that system. With the humans you meet at a function or people in your circle of influence, et cetera, right? With respect to
Yes,
that.
and oh, sorry.
Oh, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, yes, and that is true, but the ones that I do have now are all, they either golf with me or are, friends or.
Right. So interestingly, I'm actually really glad you brought that up. Okay, I need to go back for 1 second. I need to know how much experience and who is at what stage in their business first, because I think I'm going to talk in the wrong direction. So Laura, can you tell us how long you've been licensed?
I've been licensed for just over 10 years.
Okay. Suzanne?
In March, so almost a year.
So still pretty shiny new. 6 months. We're still baby.
4 months, but I like to say I'm now in my second year.
Oh my God, I flipping love that.
It helps my mentality.
100%. Absolutely. That is spectacular. Yes. My dear.
Oh, I've been licensed a year December, but only really started the last couple months after every job.
Okay, so shiny new.
New.
Two. Okay, Cyril, you've been licensed for what, 6 months, 3
Uh,
months, 2 months? I don't know.
I'm about I wrote in October and I'm about 3.5 months in.
Okay. And Cole?
I'm about 8 months.
Ooh, you might be a vet in our group here.
Oof.
Nishka?
I am fairly new, like it's 3.5 months.
Oh, 3.5. Okay, I love this. Did you guys do personality styles at all in any of your classes? Okay, I'm gonna go there with you a bit. I realize I'm gonna go mildly, extremely off script a bit for you, but I hope that's okay because Um,
I thought we were supposed to be doing disc at some point, right?
yes.
For
well,
the
that- yes.
personality?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So I don't know when or what, if that's in the class or not. I mean, I vetted all this.
Colin's gonna do it, okay.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go there a bit for you because it is 1,000% connected to winning the buyer and the conversion. So if you guys are okay, I am gonna veer a little out of my manual. That's okay with you guys.
Go nuts.
Okay, so personality styles are also really key into winning the buyer in addition to a buyer consultation process. So the reason that I wanted to get an idea of how long you've been in the business, et cetera, is to sort of get an idea of, I don't know, maybe how bruised and battered you are in terms of it. But I mean, all I can say is, I mean, I was talking to a client last night and they said, you know, I can't remember, I said how long I've been in the business. And they said, oh, like, you know, when do you plan to retire? I said, oh, realtors retire when they're in a box. I said, like, so, you know, because you either love this or you don't. There's sort of no in between in this role. So if we're looking at the actual manual, it's talking about things like lead to appointments, prepare for the buyer consultation, find a home, offer, negotiate, blah, blah, blah. I would really like to focus to start on locking the buyer in and getting them in. Laura, do you want to sneak in? I saw you wander by. I think she was going to the bathroom and peeked into the door. Okay, so if we're talking about that part of it, obviously, when you're looking to work with buyers, you've talked about your lead gen, so you've talked about circle of influence, you've talked about, you know, colder leads and all of that jazz, correct? Yes, smile and nod at me. Yes, okay, perfect, thank you. Okay, so then you've got these people who are leads. Now, I'm also, my understanding from the content and my memory is you've also talked about what is a qualified lead. Is that correct? Laura hesitated for a minute, so I'm gonna say let's refresh that for a second. Okay, I got a sort of a slow nod on that one.
My memory. Don't go by me. I'm here after 10 years and still.
Well, there's three words that I would tell you to remember when determining the amount of energy and effort you're going to spend on a lead that, in my opinion, really make a big difference. Do they have a why? Do they have a when? And do they have a what? So, sorry, where? Why, when, where? And I realize that might seem like a very obvious statement, but I guarantee that if you look at a lead list you've got, it'll help you determine who's what. So for example, the person who's may have a, you know, a when, well, you know, in the fall, maybe when the kids are done school, where would you like to go? I don't know, we'll probably stay in the same school district. Okay, that's aware, that will count as aware. You know, why are you moving? You know, just might be interested in seeing what the market can give us and what I can do and whether or not this is the right time. That's not a why. They're not ready. So how do you get them ready? A hot lead and a really motivated lead has a definitive where, when, why. I am tired of paying rent and I want to pay myself. My lease is about to renew in X point of time, so that's a when. And a where, I need a bus route, a blah, 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 what, they don't care in some cases if there's no children, right? So that person is a qualified lead. Do you see the difference? So when you're working with someone in that capacity, it gives you some of the answers that you need in terms of how am I going to follow up with them and what am I going to do to convert them? Because we have to be meeting the need of the buyer, right? For those of you here, have you yet worked with a buyer who couldn't make a decision on a property if their life depended on it? Anybody? Laura, yes? Not yet? No?
Me again.
Yep.
Sorry, I should put my hand up or something.
No, it's all good.
I
I
have,
don't have the video on for you guys because I have the screen, so I don't see your little faces if you put your hand up.
I have clients, a couple, and we have seen in the past month and a half, I bet you we've seen at least 15, maybe 16 properties.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so,
And everyone they're like, yeah.
okay, so there's two parts to that. And actually I actually really glad you said that. Because it's the, how do I want to put this? This is much for me to know what the intelligence I've talked about. And you don't have to be able to read my writing. So I just made a note because when there's that type of situation, to me, there's two things to talk about. It's one, is the buyer qualified? And what do I need to do to potentially re-qualify them to get them motivated? And the second is, do we need to have a meeting again and re-quantify what your wants and needs are as a buyer? Because I don't think it should take that many if they know what they want. And sometimes they don't know what they want, but how do we help them know what they want? Okay, so we're going to talk about that as well. So that you can try to, there's closing the buyer and there's closing the transaction in the sense of getting them to offer. It's two different skills. One is convincing them that you are the cat's meow and they should hire you. That's skill number one. But that hasn't actually demonstrated an ounce of real estate capacity yet. Does this make sense? The second part is being able to corral and take that person through the process to actually get to the place of writing an offer. And how do you do that? And so that's why you've heard, I don't know how many times you've probably heard about the idea of handling objections. And the most successful realtors are the most successful at handling objections, of hearing the concern or the point that the person has made and trying to find a solution. One of the other things in addition to that is also going to be trying to find, what's the word I want? You want them to be realistic. We're dealing with a great deal of unrealistic buyers right now, which goes back to your lead qualification in terms of winning the buyer. If you win a buyer, congratulations. But if you've won a buyer who thinks they're going to get a detached house with a garage in Cole Harbour for $400,000, you do not have a buyer. You have a dreamer. You all are fantastic, but you're not that good. You're not finding that house. It doesn't exist. Have you had the difficult conversations with your buyers? Or are we afraid to have the difficult conversations because we don't want to lose the buyer? Does this sound?
4 or 5 of them right now,
So Laura's saying she has 4 or 5 people like that right now.
right now.
Right. So that goes back to talking about a buyer consultation process, because it's about setting the expectations that you expect from them, that the market will have, and what you are going to provide. Those are things that have to happen in your buyer consultation process. There are a bazillion ways to do a buyer consultation process. There's templates with KW, different teams have people say, which is the right one? And the corny answer is, it's the one that's right for you. Well, I know that's not very helpful. Yes.
When you're talking about setting realistic expectations for your buyers, are you
Yes.
talking specifically about price, or are there other things?
It could be time frame, it could be price, it could be geography. So for example, if you have a buyer who says, I'm trying to think of a good way to find a good example for you. If you had, in terms of outside of price, if you had someone who was talking about, you know, this is my budget. And you say, okay, great, I can find a house like that. But I can only find it, say, in a geography that requires you to drive. And they say, okay, yeah, but I need to take a bus. And what you really want to say is, well, you need more money, but that's not the nice way to say that, right? But it's about setting the expectation that at this current point in our market, and in often cases, you will have to show them an example of what something went for, say, in town versus where you need to drive, suburbia versus ancillary areas of the cities. But setting that expectation, or if they said, let's say they have a $450,000 approval. And they're open to semis, they're open to townhouses, they're open to potentially a condo. So you're like, okay, I can work with this, right? Like we have some realistic expectations. And they say, but my lease ends in 30 days. And you're not that good. I'm sorry, unless you happen to find a vacant house in that price point where you didn't have to beat 30 other people out, you're not getting them in 30 days. So you could say it's possible, but these are some of our obstacles. You might want to now consider renewing your lease on a month to month so that you don't have to sleep in my basement. That's setting a realistic expectation. How often have you heard in the blah, blah noise of people talking about how we didn't do our job and we didn't listen and we didn't do what they wanted us to do? And I would argue that in a lot of cases, it's because we didn't tell them what we're going to do and how it's going to work. So they have an HGTV moment in their mind, or they're getting advice from a family member who hasn't bought a house in 25 years. So helpful, the armchair realtors. So if you don't reestablish what is currently happening, and it's changing fast, everybody. Like when I look at the shifts that we've had since March 13th of 2020, which is the day the country closed. How do I know that? I was in the Dominican Republic. I'm not sure I was getting home. One of the first Canadians to be quarantined, not a word I ever thought that I was going to use as a grown human. Moving on. So we've like the amount of change, if you think about not just the market, but the use of technology and all of this stuff that's happened in a short period of time, we have to be adapting in what we're communicating as what are the expectations. When are you available? When are you not available? If you don't set those expectations, then fully expect your consumer to message you at a time that you are in bed, or that because you haven't set any parameters. When do you work? When do you answer your phone? What happens if you're away? Have you set the expectations? How long does it typically take between the time you look at a house, assuming we like it, to firming, which they don't know what that means, so you have to explain that, to closing? How much time do we need? Depending on their price point, you might also be having a conversation about the need to stop, drop, and roll. If they're under 450 and something comes on, you can't say, I'd like to see it next week. You need to go now. Do you have a lunch hour you can take? Do you have any personal time you can take? It's dark at 6 o'clock. You can't get to every showing in the dark. Most people, especially first-time buyers, are not pulling the trigger when they cannot see the outside of the house. So is your expectation that if you cannot get out of work for us to get a daytime appointment, please drive by the house in the daytime so that when we go to the appointment, you have some idea what you're looking at? That's an expectation. Is any of this new information for anybody? I hope a little bit, but the concept being winning the buyer in a lot of cases is about establishing yourself as the expert. They aren't hiring you because you're cute. Maybe you are, but that's not why they're hiring. They want to know that you are able to lead them through this journey. One of the most common complaints about our industry, other than that we complain about each other, is that there's not enough communication and people didn't quite understand what was going on. Has anybody here or online have either themselves or a family member ever Googled a small medical issue like a bruise? Well, you're all now dying of a brain hemorrhage. Let's be very clear, right? Because it could be when you go down that rabbit hole. Well, guess what Googling real estate is? The same thing. They're going to get stuff from the US. They're going to get stuff from BC. They're going to get stuff from Toronto. They're going to get stuff from people who have no business putting anything online, who don't know anything. They're going to be their resource unless you demonstrate that you're the expert. When you go to an appointment for anything, a financial planner, a banker, a mortgage person, a car salesman, I don't care, insurance, when you're sitting there, is not part of your decision to hire that person, number one, that you feel confident that they know what they're doing, and that they have provided a roadmap as to what, where, when, why. Does that not, if you think about it, is that not why you pick a professional in your own life? Why do we think it's different on the other end? A big part of winning the buyer is establishing that you're in charge. It's their money, it's their house purchase. I'm not trying to make it that, you know, you're going to push them into something. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that you are clearly showing you have a plan. I'm clearly going to show you that I know how to get you into a house. And that based on what you've told me, these are the expectations we should have with respect to time or money or geography. And sometimes you might have to say to them, I think you should wait. I think you should wait 6 months. I think you should pay off X or Y. I think we need more down payment. I think we need to find out what's happening with your job before we go further. I don't know, depends on the conversations with the client. But sometimes one of your demonstrations of being an expert is saying, I can't do the thing you're asking me to do. I'd love to say I control the market. Lord knows I do not. And I can't make that happen. And that will create respect from that consumer. The goal then is to continue to follow up, just drop them. That's not what I'm suggesting. You just shift them from an active buyer to a buyer who's in the waiting room that you're going to continue to nurture until they're ready. Because if you don't set those expectations, then it's your fault that they didn't find a house in the price point that's not possible. Like, it's just not, like, in some cases, it's not possible. Does this make sense? When you're hiring the person to guide you through, in most cases, the most expensive purchase you're going to make at that time in your life, you really want to feel like they've got their you-know-what together. So if you don't have a process that's formal, I'm not suggesting that you tie them to a chair and they have to listen to a long, drawn-out thing, but what is your process? So if we go back to one of the questions about why do we need to meet, you need to look at what is the information that you want to convey to this person, and what do you want to know about what they need and want before we should get in the car. Because otherwise, are you actually helping them? Then you're an order taker and a pizza delivery guy who's saying, yeah, I want to go here. Okay, let's go. Meanwhile, you're thinking, this is not a good house for them. They told me, I think they told me they wanted X or Y. Why are we here? Because it's a shiny object that look really pretty online and whatever, right? So what is your process? They don't have to pay you, but it doesn't mean they don't have to trust you. Because there's lots of other ones out there that they can hire and not have to pay either. So what is your buyer process? And so when we look at what's in the actual scripting part that they're giving us here, for example, on the slide 7 close to. So this is essentially the idea of, this is methodology and scripting on, we'll talk about it for a second, on how, from a psychology perspective, you can convert the client. This comes down to different sales techniques. For example, has anyone ever heard of, I mean, the take back one is a really common one when you're working with people to say, well, you know, well, if we find we're on the same page and that we're going to, you know, be like-minded and have mutual goals, then, you know, we can work on, you know, whether I'm the right fit and whether you're the right fit for me to work. So then what you're doing is saying to the consumer, wait a minute, just because you have a pulse doesn't mean I'm going to work with you. So then the psychology of that is that now they want to defend why you should work with them. Right? It's like, well, you can't, oh, okay, oh, yeah, here it is. Oh, no, I'm taking it away. Oh, that's that concept. Okay. That works for some people. It not work for a lot of people. And I'll be honest, and a lot of times you're not going to like the feel of that conversation, and it's not necessarily organic, right? There's other ideas of showing the benefits. And I think that's the number one reason and method to convert a buyer to a contract. So we have to talk about what are the benefits? Why the heck should they hire you? And can you define it? That's what we're going to talk about too. Because if you can't quantify why they should hire you, then they're not going to understand why they should hire you. If you don't know. And if you're not passionate about it, like you got to pull from your toes, guys. You got to be really committed and passionate to why they should work with you and what do you offer? What is your system? What is your experience? What is the people you are surrounded with if you're new? You don't have to know everything. You can talk about the training and the systems and the broker, whatever you need to do. But what are the benefits of them working with you? The take back close and the negative take back close, I don't love them. I'll be honest with you. I know I'm supposed to teach them to you, but I don't really love them. Because to me, it feels a little manipulative. And that's my perspective. If you guys think I'm wrong, I will go into it in more detail. Giving them what they're looking for is connected to showing the benefits and demonstrating. But I do believe that the number one way that you're going to convert a buyer from a lead to hiring you is showing them the benefits, number one, demonstrating that you are listening. And how you're going to make their life easier by choosing to work with you. And how you're going to help them accomplish their goals. I'd love to say that our population is not very centered on me, but that would be wrong. And especially when you get into something like this, where you're asking them to spend 200, 300, 400, 500, a million, whatever, in dollars, 100% they're thinking about me. So how are you demonstrating that you understand me? 99% of people just need to know that they were heard. And not just heard, but that you have respected and processed that information. And how do you show that? You show it through a buyer consultation process and what your systems are after. I couldn't tell you the statistic, but I know it's there if I went digging for it. In the difference between a close ratio with people who do a buyer consult versus people who do not. It will be absolutely shocking. Now, one of the conversations is the person says, yeah, I'll sit down with you after, but I just really want to see this one house. I'm not telling you not to show them that house. Let's not be ridiculous. But that doesn't mean while you're standing at the kitchen counter, you haven't sort of delved into the start of your buyer consultation. And then you talk about how, well, we'll finish this not in this poor seller's house. But you're starting to quantify it. You're standing in the kitchen with the house they wanted to see because they didn't need to talk to you first. And none of the things about it are right. It's disgusting. It's whatever. It's lipstick on a pig. I don't know. Whatever the things are that aren't right for this person. And you say, okay, so we need to stop for a second. We don't want to run around and do this 50 times. I have a system. I'd love to sit down with you and let's figure out what your wants and needs are. Let's talk about the process and the timing so that when we actually get in the car, your time is respected. Yes.
I have an example from last weekend. I was working with people who are now clients, but they didn't start off.
Okay, I'm going to hold you for 1 second. Can people online, can you hear James?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay,
I was working with these new clients and we had 3 showings set up for Saturday. Middle showing got canceled last minute because they accepted an offer. So at first I was like, oh, that's a bummer. It's right in the middle of our schedules.
right.
For our scheduled showings. And then I thought, no, you know what? This is a really good opportunity to take them to Tim Hortons.
Yeah.
Bring some stuff, sit down with them, chat with them about the process, show them some
Systems, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was something that I didn't have planned. It was kind of forced upon me. And it was so beneficial to me. I was so, at the end of the day, I was so grateful that show.
Interruption happened. Yeah.
Because it gave me an opportunity to do this with them and they ended up signing with me because of that. So I really understand what you're talking about right now.
Yeah.
Because I had that experience a few days ago, but it was really, really beneficial.
And I'm going to tell you that who do you think the hardest people in the world are to get to sit down for a buyer consultation?
People with big budgets.
Nope, not people with big budgets. Who are the last people on earth that want to sit down and listen to you talk about how great you are and what you can do for them? Your friends and family. Absolutely the hardest to convert. Not convert, but like to do the way it's supposed to be done. I will tell you from my own mistakes I've made. My goal today is always to share all the stuff that I've done wrong so that you don't repeat it. And I know Richard and we've done it a few times and then we specifically correct it. And now it's part of our process when working with friends and family is we used to kind of skip the formality of our buyer consultation process. And we ended up with the most irritating clients in the entire world because they were squirrels and we were not communicating properly. I mean, we weren't super concerned at that point that they weren't going to hire us because we would have murdered them, but that's a different conversation. But when you break away from that system, it does affect the process and it does affect how smooth the thing is. It does also really change the next stage of this, which is getting them to hire you to getting them to write a contract. They're two totally different skills. So how do we find out what they need and want so that they actually buy something? I don't think any of you have signed up to be professional Uber drivers and or tour guides. I'm pretty sure that's not what you decided you wanted to do when you decided to get into this industry. So how do you stop that? It is based on setting up the parameters at the beginning. You're also going to establish yourself as a professional person. Anybody here, some of you have done my business planning class, some of you have not. You will at some point. There's something that I talk about in that course on a fairly regular basis, which is how you are business people. And I know y'all think you're business people, but half the time you don't think you're business people. So I'm going to use an example. Laura, what is your GCI sales goal for this year?
200.
200,000. Okay. And your average sale price?
Or, depends year to year. 500 maybe now.
Idea. Sorry, doing math, one moment. Okay, so Laura has set a goal of approximately 22 units at a $450,000 sale average, which is a $9,000 commission. I use 2%. So that is approximately 22 sales, okay? So if we take 22 times 450,000, Laura wants to sell $9,900,000 worth of widgets, houses, shoes, socks, tractors, it doesn't matter. You're trying to sell $10 million worth of jazz. Fair? I would like you to think of a small business, like a store, a restaurant that you love. How many of them do you think actually sell $10 million worth of product? That's a lot. It's a lot. So let's say you're thinking about your favorite restaurant. I don't know, let's say they do 5 million. I have no idea, but we'll use 5 as a gross sales number. Do you think that that restaurant does not have a system about when the appetizer goes out and who goes in and when is the dish washed and when is the table cleared and when do you arrive and when do you sit and how long do you go there? There's a machine happening in that background. But realtors want to sell 2, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 million dollars worth of a thing, and they have no systems. It is illogical to think that you are that good, that you are going to be able to wing it and sell $10 million worth of stuff. This is me peeing on your rainbow.
Okay.
But you guys understand that what we're doing, because that's what everybody's doing. They're kind of falling along. Oh, here's the buyer. Oh, I'm going to go show them a house, whatever. But you don't have a process. There are no successful long-term businesses that are profitable that don't have systems. That don't not have a budget, that don't have a forecast for how they're going to generate sales in the off season, etc. They have a plan, right? The ones that don't, they're not there for very long. I would like you not to be the store that says liquidation sale.
Where can we get an example of that?
We're going to talk about that. Okay. So, but the first thing that you have to do is make the commitment that you're going to run this element of your business like a business. When you make that mindset shift, you also change how the person sitting with you is going to see you. Make sense? You guys want to be $1 million salespeople. You might be selling at $400,000 at a time. There's not very many people that sell $400,000 things, right? You think it's a big deal. You mean you go to buy a car and go, oh my God, that was expensive. It's a tenth of the cost of the thing you're selling. They still have a system. You got to get in, you got to do the thing. They take your driver's license, they take you for a drive, They come back, they do your credit app, they convince you, they sell you a tire warranty you don't want, etc. And, but that's a system because they have a script for it, because they have a plan. How many car dealerships do you see going under? Not very many. They probably sell $10 million worth of stuff. But I'm pretty sure they have a plan. You don't have to like the plan. That's a different conversation, but because you don't have to hire them, you can hire somebody else. So this is the first thing I need really to get your heads in. Because I can show you all the objection handlers, I can teach you everything about personality styles, but if you don't start looking at this as a business process, it doesn't matter.
I find that's the one thing you're not taught, or when I took my.
You're definitely not taught that.
Because everyone comes in with the expectation, I'm just gonna sell houses, you're absolutely right, there's no talk about a business plan.
No,
So when you get your first commission check,
yes.
it's just spending money.
So I'm going to very, very highly recommend when I teach my business planning course.
When's that?
I don't have it on the schedule. I usually do it in,
We have a date before the end of this class.
no, you cannot. But you will get one. I like that. She's closing. See, she's handling this, right? Part of what I talk about is financial management, right? In terms of how to run your business and what you should be doing and, you know, yada, yada, yada. I'm not gonna squirrel off into that because that's a whole other conversation. But if we go back to the whole purpose of how do we close the buyer and how do we make that relationship most likely to turn into a transaction, it starts from the beginning. So you guys have spent the last 2 weeks or whatever it is talking about how to get the lead, convert the lead, etc. So now they want to sit with you or they want to talk to you. What are you doing with them? So I want to go over to personalities for a second. So I'm gonna give you super high level on the DISC. Okay? The DISC is only one of many methods of assessing personalities. They're all basically the same. They just kind of give it a different name and maybe slightly different attributes to each section. And so the reason that I'm going to do this with you is it's not that it will change what you need to do as a process. Your process is your process once you do your buyer consultation. But getting them to sit down with you and how you might present the same material will vary based on understanding who is sitting with you. You can't handle the objection if you're only on autopilot to them sitting down with you and you're doing it one way and assuming that every personality is going to find that appealing. Got to read the room. James just nailed it. That's a really great way to say why we need to know this. So going to give you super high level. For those people on video, I don't think the camera's working, but anyone who of course knows me knows that my arms will be flapping at any moment in my demonstration. My father had said that if you had tied my hands behind my back, I wouldn't be able to talk. Moving on. He's not really wrong. So super high level on the DISC. D is dominant. I is influencer. S is supportive. And C is cautious. You're like, okay, what the hell does that mean? So, dominant. I want to know what it's going to cost and how long it's going to take and blah, 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 and get to the point is dominant. I don't want all the blah, 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 blah. They're out. They're not listening to you. You got to land it with a D. An I is an influencer. An I is the person, I'll use being a buyer actually as an example for you. The D is the person that wants to know what are the taxes and what is this, and how much is it going to cost me and when can I get the thing and blah, blah, blah. And like, they want the facts. The I is going, oh my God, it's so pretty. Oh my God, that bathroom. Okay, that's the I. Right? The S is the person that is worried that if they do this, that I'm not sure if my kids are going to like it. It's too far from where my mother lives. You know, I need to make sure everybody's happy. I'm going to take on the world's woes. Give me a hug. That's your S.
What's the S stand for again?
Supportive.
Supportive.
So like, put your head on my shoulder. I'm an S. I will rub your head and make you feel better. I'm an S. I'm not an S. I have S. Now, everybody has everything. Let me be very clear. Everybody has everything. But in certain circumstances, certain ones are prevalent. I don't want to say dominant because then that makes everybody a D. Okay. But certain ones come out in different capacities. You might have a slightly different personality style that shows itself as a spouse or as an agent or as a parent, like, you know, you might have different things that are more prevalent at the time. A C is the person that says, okay, so I'd like the zoning certificate for a residential house, and I'd like the occupancy permit from 1965. And I think we need to call the police and check and see if there's been any cases of anything breaking and entering in the area. And maybe I'd like to call the Better Business Bureau and see if I should hire you. That's your C. They're the person that reconciles their bank book to the penny every single month. They are engineers. Well, it's that super detailed, like I want all the, like everything has to be in line. Engineers as clients are always Cs and Ds. So using that, what do you think I am?
D.
You're always 2. One is most prevalent and then you're kind of second.
DI.
I am a DI, 100%. My I is actually higher than my D, depending on the scenario. I definitely have S because I couldn't, you know, listen to 300 people talk about what is doing and how could I help them if I didn't have S. And I definitely, as a broker, have a lot of C. Let's be honest, but it all stems back to the DI. So why does that matter? So first of all, you have to know who the hell you are, because you have to know what you have to control and how you need to match and mirror when you're sitting with a consumer. So if you're sitting with a couple, I don't care what gender, irrelevant, right? The odds are the personality traits are different in the couple. One is more in charge, more focused. The other person might seem honestly a little bit confused about when you're going through all the numbers. Maybe they're not a numbers person and you can see the glaze over in their eyes. That person maybe is really focused on what color the hardwood is and is very excited about that. And the person who cared about the numbers doesn't care about that because they want to know how old the roof is. So can you see how that matters? So if I'm sitting with a buyer doing a consultation and I have a D sitting across from me and I go through a very long, detailed 2-hour something about everything ever about real estate, they're not hiring me because they're bored and they're done and they wanted you to land it about 45 minutes ago. So you have to adapt to give the same presentation and hit the high notes for the D. If you're sitting with a D and an I, and the eye is glazed over when you start talking about whatever, mortgage rates or something, that's when you need to say, okay, so-and-so, I'm getting the vibe that I may have lost you on this a bit. I will tell you 99% of the time that person will not have spoken up. And when you ask that, they'll go, yeah, actually, could you re-explain that? What am I doing when I do that?
Paying attention to them.
I'm listening. I'm watching. I'm acknowledging them as a human and demonstrating that I get them. How does that help them choosing me? They now have more confidence. Any presentation you do in this type of thing is making sure that you're getting the feedback from the consumer and that you're watching what they're doing. You'd be shocked because a lot of people in this industry assume that because the person has bought or sold X amount of houses, that they already know all of this stuff, whatever the stuff is that you're going to tell them in your buy-in presentation. I will tell you, in my experience, that is absolutely not true. Because you have absolutely no idea who they worked with before. You have absolutely no idea whether the person knew what they were talking about or didn't. And depending on what it was, the stuff that they told them is no longer true. So don't assume. You all know what assume stands for? Everybody? yes, 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 James, yes,
Yes.
yes, okay.
Make an ass out of you and me.
Correct, yay. Well, anyway, I have to PG myself half the time because I swear like a truck driver. Anyway. But understanding those personalities will allow you to match and mirror. If I have someone who's a C, then they're really going to want to know some of the more detailed stuff about the contract. They might want to know much more about what does the seller have to do if we do put in an offer? Like they're going to ask those types of questions. Well, how does what is the due diligence period? What is happening in there? What are we doing to make sure that I don't buy a lemon? That's the C. So that means you need to explain your inspections in more detail. That means you need to talk about how you're in their corner. We don't put the sold sign, we don't allow them to put the sold sign up till you're fully satisfied. These are the measures I'm going to take to protect you. These are the professionals I'm going to recommend to protect you. That's a C. They want to know that stuff. The S wants to know, does it feel right? What's the neighborhood like? Is there a community? What's happening in the area? Those are the types of things that S might want to know. So once you know the personality, and it's not hard to figure out once you start thinking about it and you're sitting with them. If you were sending properties and you've got a D and an S, which surprisingly happens quite a bit, the D really needs the S person to warm and fuzzy them a little bit, right? If you were showing a property, you might talk about the infrastructure to the D, roof done, windows done, siding done, electrical done, blah, blah, like, bop, 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 bop. It's in the price point, it meets the numbers. Okay, the D is happy. The S, you're talking about how the park is down the road, the community center's around the corner, their kids are gonna be able to play hockey here, blah, blah, blah. That's an S. Can you see how powerful this is in converting the buyer to trust you?
I can think of an instance where my husband and I are two different, of course. And sitting down with the builder when we first wanted to buy, the builder absolutely talked to my husband on his level and not mine.
Yeah.
And I just walked over and I don't want to,
What the hell, what is happening,
Yeah.
right?
I don't have any of my questions answered.
Right.
No.
And so then that's the situation where you show a house and you're not paying attention to what they're asking. That the one person goes, yeah, I don't know if Laura's the right fit for us. It only takes one of them. Listening. Asking a lot of questions. The person who has, when you say, for example, I'm going to partner you with do you have a mortgage partner? And they say, no. And you say, okay, great. You ask potentially some other qualifying questions. Is there a bank you currently deal with? And they go, yeah, I deal with whoever. Then you may ask the question, depending on the partner, are you more interested in finding the best product or are you more interested in staying loyal to your bank? Do you want the product with the best rate, the best terms, and the most options? Or do you want or is it only branch loyalty that you care about? So 99% of them are going to say, I don't care who gives me my mortgage, right? But you're asking qualifying questions. They're going to give you potentially objections, which is going to tell you what you need to tell the mortgage partner is that, for example, I've gotten them to talk to you, but they are so loyal to TD. Well, maybe that mortgage partner puts them through a TD product, but gives them better service. Right? So how do you listen to that information and help enable the next step? So when you're building your buyer consultation process, the facts are the facts, the system is the system in your buyer process. But how you may present it and areas that you might spend more time on should adapt to the humans you are sitting with. If you have your buyer presentation and process identified, then when the D says, well, why should I sit down with you? And you talk about how you will be fully informed, you will know the process, it will save you time and money. Now you have the D. The S doesn't care about that. You're talking about with the S, how my process will help identify all of the things that are important to you in making this your family home, to make sure that when I find the house for you, that it's going to meet all of your family's needs. That's an S. Do you see what I'm doing? The C wants to know that when you sit, you're going to explain all of the details for all of the process and how they're going to be fully protected in working with you. That's a C. They need someone to just rope them down and then, you'll get them. Just teasing, but you can talk about how you can prioritize, the things that matter to them. It's less stressful, it's more fun. Those are the types of things you would say to an I. This should be a great experience. This should be really positive. This should be really fun. This is exciting. You're buying your first house. I don't want you to get caught in the weeds and be overwhelmed. I know that my clients who come through my buyer consultation process have a way more positive experience than everything I've heard about other people. Okay, that's the I, because they want to have fun. I'll sit with you, but it better not be boring. So if we go back to the very first question that you guys asked, which is why do we need to meet? Part of the reason you may not be getting them to meet with you is because you don't know who you're asking and how you should answer the question. My online people, any questions, thoughts? Is this helpful, not helpful?
Sounds good.
I have nobody. Oh,
Very helpful.
okay. Please chime in if you guys have questions, because I appreciate it's different when you're online looking. You know what I
When
think I'm
they
asking?
say, if they want to be loyal to their bank,
Yep.
would you still say to go to a mortgage broker?
No, not necessarily. So part of your value proposition should be that you have a person in ideally each institution. So that I'll say, okay, and I realize this is not the correct way to say this, that you have a guy. You always have a guy, right? That's the old expression. I got a guy for that, right? Like there's an app for that, right? You need to be the app for all the things they need. So if they say, for example, I bleed Royal Bank. Okay, well, a mortgage broker can't touch RBC. They can't deal with them. So your question might be, do you deal with a branch person or do you have a mortgage partner? And they might go, oh, well, I've always dealt with a branch. So then your objection handling, depending on their personality, might be you want to actually pass the business through your RBC mortgage partner because they don't work 8 to 4, blah, blah, blah. Like there's all the reasons why they only do mortgages. They don't also open bank accounts and, do an RRSP or whatever else that they do at the branch. And so depending on their personality would depend on what you would say as to why your mortgage person is the person that you'd like to have contact them. If they're a D, it might be, this is going to be much more efficient for you because they work hours that match mine. They're going to be available immediately when I need them, and they're going to be more responsive to you. That's what a D wants to hear versus the branch person has left at 4 o'clock and now you have to wait till the next day to hear from them. Okay, that's what a D wants to hear. An I is going to want to know that this is going to just make the whole thing just more pleasant and simple because they don't want to get caught in the weeds. An I does not want, the I is the squirrel in the realtor. Okay, that's where the I is. The S, you're going to talk about how they're going to be more available to you, and it's going to, again, make it a more positive, and we're able to adapt and make this a better process for your family. And the C, who's very detailed, you can talk about how they only do mortgages. This is their specialty. So they are super detailed on the things you want to know. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you, Cole. Again, we never want to shove people to somewhere, but it's about giving them options, right? Connected to that would be if you know your products that your mortgage partners offer, sometimes the reason you're partnering them as a service, as part of your value proposition, as part of your buyer process, is that this particular product, even though, or company, even though it's not the one you normally use, they have a thing that's best for you. For example, BMO and RBC are the only two banks that will waive the penalty if you're military or RCMP and have to get moved and you move to an area where you can't buy. So let's say you're our Navy and you get shifted from Halifax to Victoria. The odds are you're not buying in Victoria, you're going into a PMQ. So then you have to break your mortgage. So BMO and RBC are the only ones that don't charge it if you prove that it's a posting. So that might be something you say, I know you deal with CIBC. However, for this one, because you're not sure how long you're going to be posted here, for example, this might be a better option because if they're Navy, then there's only two places that they can go, for example. I don't want to put you in a position where if you are offered a posting or a promotion, that you have to worry about a mortgage penalty. If you do move and you do buy, great, no problem. But I want to make sure you have the option. Then they're going to make an informed decision, but you're also demonstrating you know what you're talking about. You're hitting all the marks on every personality piece between financial management, caring for them, making it simple, blah, blah. Can you see how this all connects? So that's another piece of it. Is how do you handle the objection? With information. And how will it benefit them? Let's be honest. That's what they want to know. It's called a WIFM. Has everyone heard of a WIFM? What's in it for me is a WIFM. I'm going to stop the share for a minute because I'm not really looking at it. So then our people can participate. Okay. What I'm going to do, I think right now, because we've had, James had to step out for a second. It's 10:15. I can't believe we've been going for this long. I'm going to ask, we'll take a 10-minute break. So at 10:25, we'll come back and fresh minds. Okie dokie? Perfect. Hey, online people, this is when you get to go pee.
Excellent.
Oh, perfect. I waited. How's your house going, Angela?
Oh my God, it was busy.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
And way out in the middle of Glen Arbor, like you just kept driving and driving and I was shocked how busy it was.
Do you know how many people came from?
Yeah, there was 20.
20 different groups of people?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was,
Was it just you?
yeah, it was just me.
How did you find it?
Fine, because they came one at a time. It was absolutely perfect the way it just,
Oh,
it
the
just,
flow was good, eh?
yeah, they just, one would come out, one would come in, one would come out, one would come in.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Any potential clients?
Well, there was one girl, one woman, oh yeah, I did have one that I got their name and info. 2 or 3 already had agents, so I just let that be. But yeah, one, so I kind of sent them a text and thanked them and blah, 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 haven't
Yeah.
heard back, but. They were again, people who are looking, but I could tell. You know, they're thinking about upgrading. So, yeah, it just the experience. Well, I don't want to do another one in the snow.
Yeah,
Get these damn signs up.
I know. I've started bringing my winter boots with me to change into my work shoes because you're climbing over things to get
Oh my
signs. and-
God, I
Oh,
know.
I know. I've been having the same experience.
So, yeah, but yeah, it was good. It was very good.
Yeah, and it's great that you had a busy one too.
I know, and now it's never my first.
Exactly. Right. That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was good. Oh. Okay, I need. Is there any calls this afternoon? Skip them. Okay. We are at 2:30, 3:30, 3:30.
Watch out.
Is it?
Yeah.
What rain?
Just rain and wind.
Good. That's all the snow.
Oh, except for all the flooding we had.
Oh, I live,
Well,
I live on River Lane, flooded
Oh.
in July. We just, in our 2 condo buildings, we just finished first floor renovation. People are starting to move back in.
Get ready.
Yeah, that's, my friend was saying with me that weekend, she lost her $90,000 Volvo.
Oh.
No, like such a schmuck. Wading through waist deep water. It was the scariest friggin' thing.
It was awful. My,
There was
my
two
mom
two
had-
women standing out in front of our building on the side. And one is actually, she's younger than me, but she's a stroke victim, so she appears she's older. And they're standing with an umbrella up to this in
Oh.
water. They didn't have a car, they didn't have anything, so I got them in my car. And it was her and her mother was staying with her for the weekend. And I think it was 1 o'clock in the morning, we managed to find a way out. And got up to Basin View Drive School, and their other daughter met us there and took them, and what a night, Jesus, God in heaven. Who would have ever thought?
Oh, I don't know. My mom called and said, "Oh, I have water in my basement and
Oh,
these are just like, yeah, sure, like, yeah.
Yeah.
Go to the water. We'll go down and make sure she's okay. And, and so we got down there and I walked across her street and it was like up to on the top of my rubber boot. And then I walked into her basement and I just was like,
You
oh,
know,
this
it's,
is not
yeah,
possible. Like it was going through her house and running out the back door.
it was like, we could get to the end of River Lane and then everything was just a torrent of water coming through, but
I can't even imagine. I've seen some of the
And the-
houses in that area.
North End Diner, what's that called there? The patio went by?
Yeah.
The whole patio with the lights on it and everything.
Wow.
Off it went.
That's just awful.
But they got us away, there was this much room from my car, I bet you like this, that we could get up through the walking path to get off River Lane with a car. But you had to drive to the end of River Lane. And the water, like I lived there my whole life, 60 years, never seen it. The water was just raging by. And I had these people in my car with me. And I felt like I had this much room to turn to be able to get off River Lane. Or I'd land, and I couldn't even breathe. I was turning my car to get up through this.
Can't even imagine. Then you have the added responsibility of these people. just keeping up.
Lovely, so, and there was no way that they could get in, so the fire department comes in a boat. And says, we can't get to anybody, we were gonna bring Metro Transit buses, but we can't get up, Union Street. So my brother, who's a retired Mountie, keeps calling me, and I said, Peter, he said, I'm coming, I said, Peter, you can't get here. I said, I don't know, I got my car up because of that path on Union Street, and we'll sleep in the car if we have to. Anyways, 11:45, I turn around, who's standing there? Went all through the woods, parked his car, transit, was my brother.
Wow.
And he said, I found, there's a way at the top of Basin View, they opened up a walking path up there. If we can get out of here, you can go. Yeah, like,
Wow.
there was my brother,
Oh my
came to save his sister. Here
So you lived on Union Street?
I'm on River Lane.
You're on River Lane.
Yeah, the two condos, and the whole, so that 16 units were, it was disgusting. They were terrible. So they just started moving back in this week. We've had to renovate the whole, first floors were trash. So what is it? How many months later they're finally moving?
Oh, it's a lot of. We got my mother back together by December.
Yeah,
And we
exactly.
couldn't find contractors, so
No.
we did like there was my sister and her husband and me and my husband did all of the work to put her back together, like that we had a choice.
Well, when it was all said and done. And we realized what had, because I said to my friend, we were sitting there playing cards at my place, and I said, wow, it's really, the river's really high. But I said, don't worry, it always goes that way, because for 60 years, my whole, it's always gone that way. Anyways, her Volvo, which was actually her son's Volvo, she had borrowed it, was a $90,000 car, and it got swept at the end of my parking lot under a dumpster.
Oh.
Yeah, it was, and we had one guy who thought he could get his car out of the parking lot. And he was stuck in it, and you could hear him pounding on his car, and one of the other guys actually swimming in our parking lot to get him out of his car.
It was that.
It was unbelievable. I think
Did it get to?
it was up to here on me. When I went back in to get the old girl stuff, I was wading through, and by now, it's sewage.
Yeah.
It's sewage, and you're like, oh my God.
Oh.
So when it was all said and done, 5 o'clock in the morning, first thing we needed was a shower at my brother's when he got us there. Was my friend who was staying with me, she's like my rock, who's always calm, cool, collected. And she comes upstairs at my brother's place, and she's sitting on the edge of the bed, and she said, "I'm glad you at what we experienced." And I said, you don't realize at the time.
Yeah.
But it was,
That just shows how much everything's changing.
that's right.
Well, it's something we have to keep in mind.
So hopefully another 60 years it never happens again.
Oh, yeah.
All these people are finally just moving it back. Plus I had to pay extra condo fees and everything because it was deemed flood and not sewer damage. The deductible on the condos is $100,000 each. So, but wow, it was a night I don't think I'll ever forget.
I missed this, but it sounds awful.
That was the flood last summer.
Oh,
Up at River Lane.
oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes. I remember that day very clearly.
Get married.
Yes,
Oh my God.
yes, yes, yes. I was getting married on the 22nd, which is like it started on the 21st and
That's
was still
Friday, yeah.
going on and I was getting married on the Bedford Highway.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Anyway, by some small miracle, our venue was not completely underwater. We had power
amazing.
and we were able to have it. People didn't stay as late as they would have, I think, otherwise, because they had to get back. We had some people who came half because their houses were flooded and they still came. Anyway, God love them. Okay, so I have officially turned off the PowerPoints for now. So I'm going to ask our online people to put their cameras on, since we're going to involve you a little differently now in our conversation, because I clearly not following the script at all. So just pretend I did if anyone asks. Nobody cares. Well, I'm the boss of this part of this stuff too, so it doesn't matter. I'm not gonna tell on myself.
It's better like this anyway.
This is how I generally teach.
I do actually have a question, just.
Absolutely.
Forward, I find that one of the things that I'm drowning in a bit is this process. I'm
Yes.
trying to make everything perfect, like I think.
Everything perfect.
Yeah.
And I try to do the one thing that I need to do that day, but I'm still stuck so far out of the weeds that I
Yeah.
can't actually make. it.
Okay, so you are doing something that I am known for saying, which is that you are very busy getting ready to go.
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk about that. Okay. Are my online people back? Before I start yattering at you again?
Yes.
Yes? So we have Cyril back. Do we have Cole back? Not sure. Do we have Nishka? Okay, well, Where am I? 10:27. Okay, we're gonna continue. They'll catch up. Okay, so we were just chatting about how understanding and recognizing whom you're talking to is key to the conversion of that person to work with you. Is everyone good with that? Okay. Now, at the same time, I also don't want you to be like obsessed with trying to like put them in a box of which personality they are, but you'll eventually learn based on the cues they give you where you might need to go, okay, you know what, I'm going to give you this really quickly, but we're going to focus more on X. Because then you don't lose them. People want to be seen, people want to be heard, people want to be listened to. And the more you demonstrate that you see them as individuals, the higher your conversion rate. The method with which I teach my team is about conversion rates. I don't want you to meet with 500 people. I want you to meet with 10 who are great and want to work with you. It's too much work otherwise, and you're like a hamster on a wheel. No, thank you. We work hard enough in this business. So how do you get them to that point? And the buyer consultation process is a big part of that. So a couple things I want to chat about before we go into the, let's stop getting ready to get ready to go, was what we were just chatting about. So if I go back to my little cheat sheet of things that you guys keep reminding me of as we have conversations, is the BDBA and what you're trying to accomplish. So I'm just going to squirrel off on a second for this, because I do think it's really important that we have this conversation. I've taught this course, it's recorded. It's a course I did, I don't know when I did it anyway, because I don't know what day it is, but it's about the spirit of the BDBA and what it is. And the reason I'm going to squirrel off on this is one of the reasons why a broker is teaching this particular section, is because only a broker can tell you this stuff. Legally. Not that the other people don't know it, but they're not allowed to tell you. So the purpose of the buyer designated is what? What is the purpose of this document? Who can tell me? James.
To establish an agency,
Okay, to establish agency, but why and who cares?
because there's certain obligations of code once you have agency, and
Right.
there's certain lines that you're allowed to cross once you have agency.
Right.
That you're not allowed to if you don't have agency.
Correct? So that's part of it. What else?
Well, I'm thinking it's to clarify roles and responsibilities.
Angela's saying clarify roles and responsibilities. Okay, that's one part of it. What else? Well, Mrs. 10 years over there. Yeah, I'm looking at you. Okay, what is it not meant to do? It's not meant to be used as a tool to get you paid. It is not meant to be, ha ha, I have you. That's not the point. But there's a lot of people that think it is. I'm on the board of the commission. If you guys don't want my resume, how many committees I'm on and blah, blah, blah. I'm also chair of the forms committee. So I can 1000% assure you that the commission does not care if you ever get paid, ever. Irrelevant. They don't care. That has nothing to do with protecting the public. They don't give a flying fig if you make 5 cents. Fair? So why would they have created a form that's designed to get you paid? That's not what it's for. What it's about is about obligations, what you have to do for that consumer. And if you don't, your license is in jeopardy. It's about what they have to do with you. It's a loyalty document that I am going to work for you. I'm not charging you. I'm going to run around all over Helen Hackety would be my mother's expression. I don't know what Hackety is, but that's what she used to say. Some of you that have older family members will have recognized that. And it's about transparency, because we are not allowed to get paid something that the consumer does not know. Think about the buyer designated as a listing agreement for buyers. Do you think that your seller would be okay if you got paid something different than what was on your listing commission or on your listing documents? No, no. I'm pretty sure that they're expecting it to be X and there's no flex in that unless you amend it, correct? Wouldn't even occur to you that you shouldn't charge or that you would charge more or less than what's on that contract, right? Well, the buyer contract's exactly the same darn thing. You are showing on the whole front page of the buyer designated, all it does is talk about what you're going to do. It doesn't talk about them at all. It talks about you. It talks about confidentiality. It talks about duty of care. It talks about fiduciary duties. And it talks about the fact that if you don't do that, your ass is grass. You're in trouble. So by signing this, you are committing to do your job for them. And you are so passionate and committed that what you're going to do, you're going to tie your license to it. I'm not saying that's how you have to explain it necessarily, but depending on the person, sometimes you do. The section about compensation is about transparency. So I'm going to give you an example. And you can give this example to clients if you ever need to. Let's say in a market or in a world where you could pick from two houses. Although in certain price points you can now, but anyway, you know what I mean? It was really funny during COVID when I would say that, but anyway. So let's say the client is torn between two properties. They're really similar. There's not really a specific edge to one over the other. Like it's going to be really like which makes their heart happy. But they ask you, for example, well, do you know which one is going to appreciate more? Like which one would sell better more? Like they're going to ask you these questions when they're torn sometimes. And let's say they pick house B. And house B has a selling commission of 2.5% and a $3,000 bonus if you close by X date. The other house, house A, is 2%. Even if it was just 2 and 2.5, let's just forget about the bonus. Let's say it's 2 and 2.5. And that was house B. So they pick house B because you told them that was the one that would appreciate better and it's a better neighborhood and whatever. And you said that truthfully, like you're not lying. Let me be clear. I do not think that you are snakes. You are literally telling them if you had to pick, this is the one you would pick, but it's your house to pick which one you want. So they buy that house, they do their inspections, etc. 6 months later, all hell breaks loose since there's something wrong with the house. They now find out through the course of investigations and complaints and yada, yada, that you got paid more to sell them that one. Do you think they think that you did that truthfully or honestly? Absolutely not. You are now the sleazy, snaky realtor that everybody thinks we are. We are not allowed to get paid more or less than they know. Now, 99% of the time, you're amending a BDBA to go lower, not higher. So then you get to tell them, you know, I wouldn't let you lose the house, for example, for the difference of 0.25%. I've taken a pay cut to help you. Now you're a hero. Do you see how this works? But the point being is the buyer document, if you explain it properly as to what it is supposed to be doing, people will sign it without hesitation because it is designed to protect them from you. It is designed to protect confidentiality, that by doing this, they're hiring you. Another way to explain it is to say the word agent, by definition, an agency means representative. You are asking me to be your representative to speak to lawyers and bankers and other agents and do due diligence for you. You have to put me in that legal capacity of agent to do that. By doing this, it means your mother, brother, sister, neighbor can't ask me anything about you because I have a duty of confidentiality forever and ever. Amen. If you explain the buyer designated as that you are trying to get them to marry you and stay with you, and if they leave you, you're going to sue them. They are not going to sign it. And let me be clear, we do not sue buyers. That is not our mindset at KW. But at the same time, there are definitely times when having that, I have been able to enforce commissions or get referral fees or blah, blah, blah for you because the other person wasn't acting honorably. Let's not assume everybody's always peachy on either side of this. But when you understand the BDBA, it changes your mindset with what the purpose of your buyer consultation is. It's also an opportunity for you to demonstrate what you're going to do for them by hitting all of the 10 or 12 points that are on the right-hand side of page 1 on the BDBA. That makes sense? So when you understand that, that becomes a part of why we need to meet. Because not only are we going to talk about the process of buying or selling, in this case, buying, we're going to talk about like the costs and your budget. We're going to talk about your wants and needs. And we're going to talk about what my responsibilities and role is to protect you. Doesn't that sound like a much more positive meeting?
Yeah.
James has a question.
Yeah, according to the commission, when, in their perfect world, when would a BDPA be signed? How far in the process can we get along before we actually have that talk?
That's an excellent question. So online, I'll just repeat it just in case for some reason you guys didn't hear it properly. James is over in the corner. I didn't put him in the corner. He's in the corner. He's not facing the wall, if that makes anybody online feel better. Squirrel. It's the eye. It's the eye in me. So you get it now, right? So it has to do with when you start giving advice. So that becomes this gray question. Now, I'm going to make an assumption here, hoping I don't, dig a hole for my ass, that most of you start giving advice pretty much the moment you open your damn mouth. I think this, that, and the other. I think you should this, that, and the other thing. That's advice. Now, the commission also does not expect you to sign someone up before you show them a house. There are some people that's their policy, that's their choice. In a lot of cases, people have been burnt, and so that's their policy to go forward. It's a business choice. That's your choice. Typically, you can show 1 or 2 properties. Maybe you do 1 tour of 4 or 5 properties. But you want to have the conversation before that at the end of that, we're going to have a conversation about, I'm going to start to get into the gray in this from a legal perspective, and I can't continue to give you advice. I can't give you advice if we don't discuss my role and my agency role. And that's when you talk about the purpose of the BDBA, etc. Now, it's your business decision how you deal with that BDBA. Some people will write in that, you can fire me if you want to. I don't recommend that. I really don't. It's extremely rare. Okay, you got to think about that. I got 300 agents. Try corralling you all. Do you know how hard it was to get you all to do that FinTrack course? Thing. Moving on. It is so extremely rare that I get a call from a consumer or an agent that someone's trying to get out of their BDBA. It's extremely rare. Like proportionately. Which means you're doing a great job. Which means your clients are not firing you. Do not build a clause in automatically to offer that, in my opinion. Right? If you explain the BDBA properly, it says, upon mutually agreed, we can terminate, or at the option of the non-defaulting party. So that basically says, if I don't do my job that's outlined on page 1, then we would have a conversation about whether or not we should continue to work together. But it's extremely rare that you haven't done your job. But don't offer that to start, please. That's not going to help you, right? But again, when you are hired and you have explained the BDBA properly, you will not run into that issue. Ideally, you will sign them up as early in the process as is appropriate. Ideally, you will potentially, in the ideal world, you will have done your buyer consultation before you get in the car. And you can talk about it then. And then you could say, you know, I'm not asking you to marry me now. We're going to go on a date and I'm going to show you some properties and you're going to see how I work. And if I'm the right fit and you're the right fit, so I'm doing a little bit of the take back close, then we'll chat about the hiring me and not paying me situation. Because that's exactly what you're asking to do. I'm asking you to hire me, but not pay me. Right? And they go, oh, okay, no problem. And so you've shown them 3 or 4 houses. You're standing in the kitchen of the last house or the furnace room. For some reason, we always end up having very deep conversations in the very bottom room of the basement. I don't know how or why that happens, but it does. And to be able to say, okay, so now we've done this. We've had a few, I see this. Okay, we realize this isn't going to work. You know, we really need to sit down now. Let's take a second and look at our calendars. What did I do there? Okay, Angela has a question.
Taking control of it.
I'm taking control. Hold that thought for a second. Angela, you had a question.
Well, going back to when you're discussing that about hiring us and not paying us.
Yes.
Do you have the discussion if the opportunity presents itself where there's not enough proceeds from the sale,
Yep.
that they do have to pay us?
That, yes, it depends on your conversation with the consumer. The reality is now is that there's been a big shift over the last 5 years where based on business models, there's a lot of business models now with for sale by owners or different processes. And they're on MLS and they know they're happy to offer a cooperating commission to the other side. It's so rare now that we have to have that fight where even the for sale by owners fight the one side, that honestly, it's not such a huge deal. I would be cautious about how prevalent I make that as a part of the conversation. But there are also ways, which I can explain to you if we squirrel off, if we have time, on how to get the seller, how to basically put the commission into the price that the buyer pays it, but they don't need the cash. So if you're dealing with a for sale by owner, let's say, and they only want to give you 1% and you want another 1%, there's a way to do it in the deal that it's basically buried in the deal. It's legal. Please note, obviously it's legal, right? That the consumer doesn't come up with cash because they don't want to come up with cash or they don't have cash.
But that would apply, would that apply? Could that apply to a situation that's going to probably present itself where people are mortgaged so high on their properties that when they're selling them, there's not enough in the proceeds after they've cleared the mortgage and the lawyer?
Well, in the seller's agent has a responsibility if they put it on MLS that the funds have to be there to pay the commission if it's offered. If it's on MLS, the money's owed. If they've signed a listing agreement, the money's owed. Now, practically, does that happen all the time? Yes, it gets messed up sometimes, but extremely rarely. And I will tell you, the lawyer will get paid before we get paid, which is wrong, but it is what it is. But it's extremely rare. I think I've only had it happen here at the office. I don't know, maybe a couple of times. Even foreclosures offer commissions. So honestly, I don't think that's going to be a huge issue. It may be a reduced commission based on that particular perspective, but honestly, the commission in some cases is not, they shouldn't be on the market because they shouldn't be on the market if they can't close.
Is that something that might be in tomorrow's, we can go more in detail with tomorrow's session on Minnesota?
I don't know.
But
I don't know. I read my section. No, I lie. I did read every slide because I had to check them for broker compliance. That was really exciting. I know you're pretty riveted about that job I had to do, but did I read every slide? No. So maybe, I don't know.
okay, so maybe
Who's
later-
teaching tomorrow? Susan's teaching tomorrow. Yeah, ask her. Ask Susan.
She's another.
I'm passing,
right?
yeah, she's my junior me. Yeah.
Remember that, Angela? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You remember that? Okay.
Okay, so the reason I mention that is because the BDBA, if you embrace the spirit of the BDBA and you truly understand the purpose of the BDBA, it's actually an asset to your buyer consultation process. Not a negative. Because you're signing on the dotted line that you're going to do your damn job. That it's not just talk. I would really like to keep my license, but I'd also like to eat. So we're going to make this a win-win. Now, my personality is that I would actually say that because that's my personality. I realize that's not how other people may say it, right? But again, if you understand the purpose of why you're meeting with them, if you understand the purpose of the document you want them to sign, then that meeting will have value and you will close the client. Maureen made a point in the middle of this question about being in control. You've seen a bazillion things at KW and other places where we use the expression trusted guide as part of what your role is. Well, if you're going to trust the guide that's walking you across the cliff, which is how it feels to a lot of buyers, that they're walking on that ladder thing across the cavern because they're now going to spend this much money. They're terrified. They need to know that you are there in front of them, that you know it, that you have it, and that you have their best interest. They don't expect you to know everything because you're also going to tell them at some point in your conversation, I would hope, that you have this incredible support system so that if there is ever something that comes up that I'm not the expert at, that I have the resources to get you the answer. It is part of my buyer and seller presentation that I specifically tell them that I do not know all the answers. But I have the relationships to get you the answer from a trusted source if I don't know it.
See, that's how I deal with the lack of experience side of it. Instead of feeling like, well, I don't have the experience, sit here and tell them I've got this, what I do have
Is
is
we
a wealth of people behind me,
correct.
right? That.
James is waving at you. Yeah, yeah. But it's true. So if we go back to Suzanne's question about getting ready to get ready. So I happen to know Suzanne. I've known her for, I'm going to say 10 years.
15.
Maybe, it's possible. One of her absolutely most amazing skills is how detailed she is and how she can keep track of the tiny details that the I in me goes, where's that pile? Where's that pile? She's my woman. She's the woman I want in my corner for that, right? So I'm going to, again, make another assumption, Suzanne, that you getting ready to get ready to go is connected to this most spectacular pamphlet, presentation, guide thing that you're going to give someone. Fair? Right. And it's going to be perfect and it's going to cover every conceivable thing. And when that's ready, then you'll be ready. Is that right?
Yeah, to a degree, even when it comes to like making phone calls, I feel like, okay, I need to know this before I call this
Right.
person.
Right.
Maybe it's just excuses.
Well, there's that. And that's, I actually have massive respect for the fact that you just admitted that. That's fantastic. That is so fantastic. So I'm going to give you an example. My buyer presentation is one piece of paper. I do not have a booklet. I do not have a PowerPoint. I have absolutely nothing, but I have a checklist of things that I would like to talk about. I don't give them anything. I literally give them nothing. Not a single piece of paper, nothing. My team uses the exact same system. We did 985,000 GCI as a team last year. You're the second highest team behind CRT. It's not about the shit you give them. It's about what comes out of your mouth. Stop worrying about the stuff. How many postcards or flyers on anything have you gotten in the mail that you go, stop everybody? We need to phone this person for carpet cleaning right now. Everyone thinks they're going to give out the most beautiful newsletter and the most beautiful postcard, and their phone's going to ring. Wrong. Absolutely wrong. Because even if they do phone you, if you don't know what the hell you're talking about, it doesn't matter. And here's the thing. Most people will fully respect if they ask you a question and you go, I haven't heard that one before. Leave that with me.
And it will happen.
It's going to happen to me. I know a little bit, a thing or two. I still get that. Please don't get wrapped up in this formal thing that you need before you start. There is absolutely no way that you're going to have the perfect presentation as a new agent. It's going to change, it's going to evolve, it's going to grow as you build your systems. Now, I'm not saying you can't refer to guides that are available and try and find the points, and maybe you want to give people something. That's your choice. But for the love of God, do not sit frozen waiting to think that they're not going to hire you because your PDF with the picture of the house and the checkpoints underneath wasn't beautiful. They don't care. I'll give you another example. Websites. Everyone's like, I can't market myself till I have a great website. Well, I can personally tell you, I had the absolute worst shit website for a very long time. We hadn't updated it, and I don't have any idea how long. Nobody cares. But checking your website to make sure you're a real human and that you're not sitting there, on a cow or something. That's all. They don't care. People don't care. There's nothing you're going to write on your website that's so spectacular that it's necessarily going to change their mind. What's going to change their mind is when you open your mouth. Doesn't matter what you write. Doesn't matter what you hand them. If when you open your mouth, it doesn't match, it doesn't matter. They're not hiring you. If you went to a meeting with someone who handed you the most glossy, beautiful brochure in your life, and what came out of their mouth was crap, do you care about the glossy brochure? What did you do with it? You put it in the garbage. You are never going to know everything in this business, ever. I don't know everything in this business. I learn something every single freaking day. You know the basics. You know that you have access to resources for the stuff you don't know. And I also know that every single one of you, when speaking to your buyers or speaking to your clients, are speaking to them with honesty, with compassion, and with the right intentions. And that is going to win you every time over the spectacular PowerPoint. Because I'm old and I've been doing this for a long time, my buyer presentation used to consist of a purple pad of paper. I wrote out the things that I do on a purple pad of paper and I tore the sheet and I gave it to them. And I used purple paper so that it didn't blend into the pile of paper on the end of the counter. Was so fancy, so fancy. Well, now I do every single buyer presentation by Zoom, so I'm not giving them purple paper. I don't meet in person. Almost never, almost never. And we were using Zoom 2 years before the road blew up. They want to see you. They don't need to see you. They don't need to touch you. They need to see you. I'm not driving an hour and a half to sit and have tea with you and blah, 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 and look at your dog and yada, yada for an hour and a half to then do an hour and a half presentation and then, no.
And you can do it all, so.
They don't want me there.
Especially the younger generations,
No, nobody wants you there.
even the older ones.
They don't want to clean up their house. They don't want to have, they don't want any of that.
I don't want them in my house. So.
Right? So you can decide what's your business model. Right? You may discover that your conversion rate on buyer appointments is higher if you do it by Zoom. It's way less terrifying than coming into the office. I'm also not gonna get murdered.
Yeah, right.
I'm not getting murdered,
That's the good thing.
right? I'm not alone in an office in the afternoon, in the dark, whatever, with people I don't know. They're not climbing through my computer to kill me. As a woman, I prefer this,
Do you find you get a good enough feel for them?
100%. You see them in their natural habitat. Think of it like the zoo. You can see, the Star Wars posters and the mess and the dog is climbing over them and you're like, okay, I got this.
You
Right.
know, red flags behind it.
No, whatever. Like you're seeing, like, the kids are interrupting, the dog's barking. There's a humanity in my experience that goes with this, right? I can tell you during COVID, you know how everyone was getting like super casual on Zoom, like super casual. I can remember doing a meeting with buyers. They were already clients, but they were literally in their house coats.
They grew up in a.
No, like sitting on the couch in their house coats. And I was like, okay, well, like, I just put pants on. Anyway, I think it was the first conference when the world opened at KW that there was this group, it was all over the KW family reunion site or whatever. And there was this team that showed up for the conference and they all came in business attire from here to waist down and then had shorts or pajamas and slippers on the bottom. It was hilarious, right? And then the pictures of them, it was just like the guy in the suit and the dress shirt, and then he had like Bermuda shorts and flip flops on. And then there was a woman who had on like a nice blouse, and then she had like, I don't know, cat pajamas and bunny slippers. Like it was really fun. Anyway, you choose. It's your business. This is your store. You're opening your store. What do you want your store to be?
Anne, can you
Yes,
hear me? It's
I
Stace.
can. Hi, Steve.
I had a quick question for you. I'm
Sure.
just curious, when you're describing how you do things and you own by Zoom, you don't give them any, like, you have obviously reached a level of success and have years and years of success under your belt. Is this something you get away
Continue to
with?
blow smoke. Love it. Continue. Yeah.
And well, I'm just thinking, what I'm getting at is you have the luxury of being able to maybe pull that off. Did you do that when you were brand new though in the industry?
Yeah, I did. I've
You
been
did?
doing this. I
Okay.
developed a system 19 years ago, but I have a sales and HR and business development background. Like this is I've been doing this for a really long time. At the same time, I did still go off of guides that other people had. I don't think you were here at the beginning when I was doing personality styles. I am a very high I. Were you here you don't know what I'm talking about? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, I do. I'm familiar with I know you
Okay.
KW is really big on the whole personality
Yeah,
thing.
so I'm gonna give you the 2-second Coles notes. Everyone else can just bear with me for 1 second while I repeat
Sure.
it. The D is the person who's like, okay, let's go, let's get to the point, move now, what is happening? The I is the squirrel in every realtor. Oh my God, it's so shiny, how I squirrel off onto whatever the hell I squirrel off onto, that's the I. Oh my God, it's a shiny countertop. Oh my God, it's sparkly. Sparkly is my favorite color. Moving on, that's an I. And S is the person who is gonna take on all the woes of all the people and please put your head on my shoulder and let me pat your back. That's the S. And the C is the person that would like the engineer's report and the details, and they want you to break down every single line of the BDBA and read it to them in detail. Okay, that's your super Coles note on the disc. So my I is way too high to sit and prepare a really swanky 20-page anything. It's just not, it's not possible. So I basically made like literally like a checkbox checklist for myself of the things I wanted to make sure that I asked or talked about. Those templates exist within the KW format. Okay, and we'll chat about that a little bit in a second. It's going to change and evolve as your business changes, as the market changes. We never would have talked about multiple offers the way we talk about them now. when you're, when you're explaining how things might go for a buyer. I remember reading the multiple offer clause in the SDBA to sellers for the majority of my career and saying, well, I have to ask you this question, but I don't really know why. This isn't Toronto. We don't have multiple offers. Here, multiple offers like asking price or $1,000 over. But I technically have to ask you, please say yes. And they would go, ah. And I'd say, it's not like HGTV where you do an open house and you come back and I got 10 offers on the table. Well, then the world changed. And so now we have to explain now that you are not going to get $500,000 over your asking price when we do the multiple offer clause. Fair? So your buyer presentation should evolve. It should change as things change. If it stays the same and the rest of the world changes around you, you will be left behind. So Stacy, we're going to look at some of the resources that exist for buyer templates, but don't worry about it being something that you necessarily have to prepare to give. This is where you guys get stuck. Is you're trying to be graphic designers.
Oh, so true.
And maybe you are a graphic designer. Congratulations, right? But if you gave literally a handout that summarized in point form, literally 10 points typed with a bullet of the 10 things you want them to take away from your meeting, that's all they're going to need. That's my experience telling you that. I think it's a crutch. I think everybody gets stuck thinking they need this fancy dancy show to get someone to hire them. That's my opinion. You can agree, not agree, but that's my opinion. I don't think it matters how fancy or swanky your crap is if when you talk to them, you're not educated, you're not informative, you're not compassionate, and you're not authentic. I don't think any of the other shit matters. Pardon my language. So how you work based on your personality, maybe you do want a full template that you want to go through because you want that comfort of that. Okay, we have buyer templates available that are 30 pages long. You can have all the detail in the planet that you want if that's what you need. But you need to still be prepared to adapt how you present that content to the human you are sitting with. And it's not that you don't present certain items, but you may spend less emphasis on certain items because they don't care or they don't apply. Does that help at all? Maybe yes, no? Okay.
Yes, that's good. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So going back to why do we need to meet? Let's just regroup to this whole point about closing. We're talking about getting the buyer appointment and converting them. So understanding what you're offering, why they should meet, how they will benefit. You could literally sit and make a point form list of what you would like to make sure a buyer knew before you went in the car. And what are the things you want to make sure that they understand? What are the high level things that you want to accomplish before you drag a buyer all over the world? That's your buyer presentation. Are you pre-qualified? Yes, no. Your answer is if no, okay, let's talk about that for a second. Do you have your down payment? Well, sort of. Okay, well, why don't we talk about closing costs for a minute? Let's make sure you have enough money. What do you want in the house? If the world opened up and I could find you the perfect house with your budget, what would it be? What are the things it has to have? And what are the things that would be nice to have? They're two totally different questions. You might ask about geography. Where do you work? Where do you live? Where are your people? Let's say you've got young couples. This is an example of how you can prove that you're working for them. And they say, I have a $450,000 budget And I don't care anywhere in HRM, as long as I can get a bus and get to work, I work downtown. Okay, great. And let's say they live right now in Clayton Park in an apartment, right? The dark side is the dark side to them. So for my Valley person there, Stacy, bear with me. I don't know exactly what your analogy would be, maybe Centerville to Kentville, I don't know. But the idea being, you might say to them, okay, and they go, yeah, you know what, I'm good with anywhere. Eastern Passage, Dartmouth, Sackville, whatever, and you go, okay, where are your people? Where's your family? Oh, they're in Timberley. Where are your friends? They're all in Bedford. Okay, maybe we should talk about Timberley or Sackville, because no one's coming to see you in Eastern Passage. You're going to be lonely in your house. Congratulations. And they might go, yeah, well, I'm not close to them, my friends, it's fine, I'll go wherever. Okay, great. But there are other people who go, oh, I didn't think about that. How many cars do you have? 2. Okay. So we need to find a house that either has a driveway big enough, has the lawn big enough to expand the driveway part, not the entry to the driveway. You cannot change the curb cut, but you can change the lawn part. Because we can't depend on street parking. It's Nova Scotia. Depending on where you are, if you're in Timberley, the driveways are so close together, there's not room for a car between the driveways anyway. So you're not street parking unless you block your own damn driveway. So that is a must if you need your 2 cars. Wants and needs. Number one of the main things you want to talk about. I define a need as like, I need 3 bedrooms. I need to not spend more than X. I need a bus route. I would like no carpet. I would like white kitchen cabinets. Those are wants, those are not needs. I have a note on my board that says devil's advocate. Part of your job is to create the expectations. You might talk about resources. How handy are you? This is always a fun question. They go, oh yeah, I'm good with the fixer-upper. Yeah, I'm good with that. And I'll say, okay, let's talk about that for a minute. Fixer-upper, I'm putting laminate flooring down, or I'm ripping out windows. 2 different levels of fixer-upper. Well, a lot of times what's really funny, and this is where the personality styles beat you in the head when you're sitting with clients. And let's say, again, you have a couple, gender irrelevant. And the one person says, oh yeah, I'm handy. And the other person's face is like, well, right? And that's when you can go, okay, we have a difference of opinion here. Like you can joke about that. Like you can engage with them, right? They might say, yeah, you know, well, my uncle and my dad's neighbor's friend's dog's brother is an electrician and he'll help me. Okay, so we're going to budget on hiring a human. And if this person comes along and saves you money, great. They might say, I want a detached house in this area with blah, 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 and this many things. And you go, not happening. Can't do it. Is it a first house? Are you setting expectations that they're not going to die in this house? This is the first house. We want to build equity in this one and get on to the next one. We want to stop paying rent. I'm a landlord. I greatly appreciate my tenants. Thank you very much. However, that's not your goal right now. So what can I give you? What can I provide for you in your budget that meets the geography, that meets this, meets that? Show them. Show them, don't tell them. So maybe you pull up Paragon and go, look at this absolutely adorable, cute house. Windows are done, roof's done, blah, blah, blah. What am I doing? I'm qualifying the search so that when I send them a property, they know I've listened. We're on the same page. The odds of them writing are closer because I've identified their needs and their wants before. When you do that in your buyer consultation and someone sends you a listing, because they're also very helpful, they send you listings and you didn't send them this one. And you say, yes, I didn't send you this one because you told me that you do not have any additional funds other than your down payment and closing costs. And this particular house needs windows and roof shingles. So do you have another $35,000 lying around? No. So we're gonna go look at one with windows and roof that might look like 1975 because changing a carpet is way more fun that you can do yourself than ripping out the windows.
I have a question.
Yes.
A little bit of insight. When you.
You mean you might squirrel? Come on.
I'm learning.
Yeah.
When you set somebody up, send them, when you're trying to find somebody, else, set them up on Cloud Center and send them all the properties.
Absolutely not.
No.
I am a huge, I'm
Why?
very much of the opinion that you should have it set on agent preview.
And then send, okay, why?
Why? Because this is, again, this is my opinion, and if this is what you're doing and it's working for you, you are allowed to tell me to shut up, okay? That's fine. This is my personal opinion in my personal experience. Everybody can find the listings everywhere on a bazillion websites right now. So you auto dripping the same crap that they can find for themselves, how does that provide value? Your value is not in finding the house. Your value is in qualifying the house. So you might get 10 listings, but in looking at them, there's only 2 that will meet the needs and wants of your client and that you think are worth getting in the car to look at. The other ones are garbage. For example, there are no deals in real estate. Can we just be very clear about this? This is also an expectation that you need to set. Real estate is the #1 proof that you get what you pay for. I will give you an example. Many, many, many years ago, back in the days of the purple paper, I had this absolutely adorable first-time buyer clients who were moving to Nova Scotia from Newfoundland. They had literally never left Newfoundland until they came here. I can't remember what city they lived in or town, but it was not a very big one, and Halifax was a big place. Great, no problem. Well, they obviously wanted a deal. Everybody wants a deal. And so this was back when you could buy a semi-detached for $129,000. I'm old. So I can remember that they originally were looking for a mini home. And now I can't remember what I did yesterday, but I can remember these people from 19 years ago, please no. So don't ask me where my car keys are. So we had a conversation, and when I talked to them in our buyer consultation, I was able to show them that the cost of owning the mini home with the lot fees was at the time the same cost as owning a semi-detached. And that their appreciation was higher on a semi-detached than it was on a mini home. Now, that's not necessarily the case, but then it definitely was. So we now had different options to look at based on their wants and needs, right? We don't have to deal with the park necessarily. We don't have to worry about whether they're going to let my dog live and stay with me, blah, blah, blah. We had more options. So now they start looking at semi-detached. So they're online. We did still have online then. Yes, thank you very much. And although we did have to deliver deposit checks to each other's houses, but that's a
And you're
different
not
conversation.
that old, because I had to look at the MLS book.
There you go. My first house, I had to do that I bought, not that I sold. Anyway, so again, squirrel. So these lovely people call me and say, we would like to see 123 Smith Street. It's 2 semi-detached for 130,000. And I said, really? Where is that? And they said, well, let me give you the MLS number or the address, whatever they gave me. I said, okay, let me look it up. I'll call you back. So I look it up and I went, oh, no, no. Oh, no, 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 no. They are not buying this. They cannot live on this street. You want to live on this street? I'm getting you another realtor. I am not issuing a flak jacket on closing. That's one of my rules. If I don't want to go visit you because I'm terrified, then I shouldn't have put you there. That's a personal rule that my team and I have. So I called them and I said, okay, here's the deal. I would like you to drive by this house and then call me back. And if you would still like to see it, then I will get you another realtor who will sell it to you because I'm not going to do it. I'm not comfortable with that. And they said, well, all right. So they drove by. They called me back. Where would you like us to live, Anne? Was exactly what they said to me. And off we went to Eastern Passage. where this lovely young couple was not going to need a flak jacket on closing. You're setting realistic expectations. And this, if we go back to the list, when I talked about, push away to bring back, I didn't do it to bring them back. I was doing it because I was not selling them that house, and a paycheck to me was not worth putting these people in this particular property because there are no deals in real estate.
Yep.
Make sense?
Yep.
So back to your buyer presentation and setting expectations. We have a bazillion templates available to you. There are actually so many templates that you could actually send yourself down a rabbit hole of getting ready to get ready by analyzing every potential buyer presentation that exists.
Maureen even sent us hers, which is a really condensed.
So, but again, if I accomplish nothing else from today, than to stop you from worrying about what you're giving physically to people and worry more about what you want to communicate to people, then I will have won a gold medal. It can be literally a checklist that you have. Are you pre-approved? Are you renting? When do you want to buy? What's your budget? What do you need? What do you want? What do you need? And what is my role? What am I going to do for you? Ta-da! You've just done a buyer presentation.
But, sorry, the point that you're making, I keep hearing from a lot of people, so,
Yeah.
I don't fully agree with it.
That's okay.
but-
You don't have to.
But one thing I want to bring up is, I keep hearing, since being in this industry, about the power of giving something of value to people. So if you have something to leave someone, explains A, B, C, D, E, is that not something of value that you're giving them?
So I'm going to challenge you on that one. Because I don't think the value is the thing. I think the value is the information. Right? And all I can tell you is that there's a ton of extremely successful agents who, yes, they still give something, but if you ask that buyer where that thing is, they probably couldn't tell you. It's in a drawer, it's in a pile. The reason they continue to work with you is because they trust you. They trust you because of what you've said and how you've listened and what you're doing. They don't trust you because you're a graphic designer, right? I think there's a misconception between a thing of value being a thing. Okay, value is information. Value is what is valuable to the consumer. If them knowing that you're looking after them, that you're not going to sell them a house on X street, that you're not going to go over the budget, that you know the market, that whatever, that's value, right? There is a really big misconception, and I'm so grateful for you asking that question, James, because there is this perception that value has to be tangible.
I believe it's the experience.
Well, it's not even your experience, because in some cases, you don't have enough real estate experience, but you have life experience.
Not my experience. The experience.
Yeah, the experience, right. And do they feel when they left that they know more than when they got there? That's value. Okay, so I'm not saying don't give them a thing. What I'm saying is don't paralyze yourself in starting your business or being motivated or comfortable talking to people because you still don't have this. I can tell you that Richard and I, God love my transaction coordinator. She has been with me for 18 years. I'm a lot, so, I'm aware. She's partly a saint. Anyway, we have worked on a formal buyer presentation for 18 years. We have never finished it. We have never handed it out. Never. Drives her crazy because we keep starting it going, this is there. We're gonna do the thing. She's like, all right, I know. She's like, I'm wasting my time typing this goddamn thing up that they're never gonna use and they're never gonna finish. Don't ask her actually how many times we've done that because she might quit. Value is what is valuable to the client. If valuable is that you're going to be this person for them and protect them and look after them. If it's that you're going to be available, that you have other resource, it's different for every person. It's the same conversation when, you talk about like door knocking or something like that. What are you giving a value, right? Again, the value, if you actually speak to the person at the door, the value isn't the thing you gave them. It's that you had a great conversation and that they actually want to keep the little thing you gave them. If you gave them a really shiny thing, but you were useless at the door, then they're putting your shiny thing in the garbage because it didn't have value. The value is associated to the conversation. Buyers will hire you when they perceive value. So how do you do that? You listen. You inform. Is it the steps? Maybe you have a different checklist for different stages of buyers, first-time buyers, moving up buyers, down, like coming from away buyers. Like there might be different questions you ask, right? So let's say, for example, people coming from away. They have school-age children. What grades are they in, first of all? Do they play sports? Do you want them to be able to take a bus? Are you prepared to drive them every single place they need to be? Are they in high school? Yep. Are they in the IB program? Yep. Okay, well, now I'm geographically starting to narrow my search. Do you see what I'm doing? That's a buyer consultation. The buyer consultation should be 50 questions, 20 questions, whatever the mindset is. It's questions. It's questions, and then you giving advice or giving context to those things. When you do that, when you go out to view a home, and let's say, I'll give you another example. I've had, I don't know how many buyer consultations, usually with people from away who say, I don't want a house with oil. I have a house with oil. I don't really want a house with oil now, but it didn't used to be such a big deal. Anyway, I don't want a house with oil. They're coming from Ontario or out west. They have natural gas and they don't know what the hell this is and why our natural gas goes underneath us, but doesn't come to us. But that's, again, a different conversation. So you might say, okay, well, we need to talk about that because 50% to 60% of the homes in Nova Scotia have oil. So why don't you want oil? I could legitimately say up until the last 2 years that it didn't actually cost any more to have oil. And we had the proof because we had years and years and years of heating costs from deals. There was no difference, right? Because the power company uses oil and uses fossil fuels to create the energy, right? So it wasn't a big difference, right? So why don't you want oil? Well, because I've heard it's not safe. Okay, well, let's talk about that. So I'm informing them because if not, they're going to ignore 60% of the listings because they don't want oil. Another example. Well, I really want a new house. I don't want an old house. I don't want to get into fixing things. I want a new house. Okay, so let me ask, is it the age of the house or the age of the infrastructure that you want? Well, yeah, I don't want to deal with roof and windows. I'll say, okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate. I could have a 5-year-old house that someone has beat the crap out of with their dogs and their kids and whatever and hasn't looked after it. And I could have a 20-year-old house that they just redid the kitchen, the plumbing, the windows, the roof. It is effectively the same age as the 5-year-old house. So why don't we want an older house? You don't want a house that needs repairs. That's not the same thing. The day the foundation went in is not relevant to the age of the house. If that was the case, then the South End houses would be worth $1. Not what they are worth. But how are we getting to find that objection? By asking questions. So then when you pick a house together that you're going to go see, we've already established that we're fine that it's oil, or that we're fine that it's 25 years old, but they've renovated it. So now you don't go and show them 20 houses and then come back and then go, no, they were all, or you can't find anything to show them because all you've done is have them tell you what they want without you asking questions. You are not an order taker unless you're in customer status, but you're not an order taker. value would be to say, I'm not sure if you're aware that X, Y, Z. Whatever, six words. There's a sentence that I will share with you that if you don't already use, I will highly recommend that you do. And that is when you're speaking to people who are telling you that this is the thing, this is the way. There's a sentence, which again, I didn't count how many words it is, it doesn't matter, that will allow you to interject without it being combative. And it would be to say, may I make a suggestion? Now they say yes, which means I have permission to tell them the thing I need to tell them. It's a way to handle an objection with permission.
This is my mother's house. Like I'm just ready to start laughing, but so my husband and my brother-in-law were putting my mother's basement back together basically. And my brother-in-law would always, he's like, my husband's like would smash and tear and fix things.
Right.
And my brother-in-law think about it and have a different approach.
Right.
And so he would say this every time to my husband, may I make a suggestion? And they figured it out, but now we're doing it at home.
So you're going to be the expert, right?
Yeah.
But it's a way to say, and then it's also okay when someone says, well, I can't have this because of this. And you say, okay, I understand what you're saying. With your permission, I'm going to give you a different perspective.
It's a great way to get along and
But so first thing you've done is you've shown them that you listened. Everybody wants to be heard. I've shown them that I've listened. Now, you're sitting with me because you actually want advice or you wouldn't be sitting with me. Right? You're not going to say it to them that way. That's not going to work. But so as a result, you saying, hey, I completely understand what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. With your permission, I'm going to give you another perspective. They're going to listen because A, they've given you permission, and B, your tonality is going to reflect calm. Okay. So we go back to our thing. Why do they want to meet? Because you want to find out all this information about how you can help them. Why do you want to meet? It's going to save them time, money, energy, stress. What, depending on who the person is, you could maybe list all of them because you don't know yet what the heck their thing is. That's okay. And in most cases, as I say, your buyer presentation should be you asking them questions and then based on their answers, providing a roadmap. Maybe it's, based on what we've said, maybe we need to wait 2 or 3 months. Maybe their lease doesn't end for 10 months. So, okay, and they're not prepared to sublet it and get out. So we need to come back. Right? Instead of you running around and they can't even get out of their lease. I have literally looked at none of these papers. So I'm using it from. I do think I've covered it, though. I really do actually think I've covered the point. So if we look at this, why do we want to meet? We talked about that. Everybody clear that there's value in this meeting? Understanding the personality of the humans that you're sitting with. Spend time learning how to read personalities. Learn time how to match and mirror. For example, if you are sitting in person or even if you're on Zoom, if you have someone who's assertive, then you need to lean back. You don't lean in, you lean back because they're going to view it as confrontational. Right? Someone who's all wound up and excited, you can still be wound up and excited and say, okay, I get it. Oh my God, I'm so excited too. But wait a second. We need to focus for a minute. How do you work with them? Someone who speaks extremely quickly, you need to speak slowly. Or someone who's really like kind of nervous, like you can't, like when I have someone who's really, shy or nervous or trepidatious or whatever, I have to stick my D and my I have to bury it. And I have to go full S. I have to pull my S out and slow the down. And I need to slow my speech and I need to go a little more point by point. Because I can tell that I'm gonna overwhelm them if I go D. Make sense? So that's really important in the success of the buyer consultation. You can have the most beautiful presentation in the entire world, but if you are not connecting with these people and showing that you understand them and listen to them, I don't care how fabulous your presentation is, because you're not going to win. The BDBA, using that as a positive tool to show that you are going to do your job and this protects them. And that you are going to establish this sooner rather than later based on the circumstance. Perfection and getting ready to get ready to go. We're going to look at where some of the templates are, if I can find them. I probably won't be able to find them while I'm under the pressure of showing you, so I may have to get KW Connect there. So Angela just saved my life for me. Thank you very much. That's where most of them are.
Yeah.
And in there are templates by what's called KWRI or KWRU, which is Keller Williams University is the KWU code. That means it was produced by corporate. But in the KW Connect, it is also where, because of our culture of sharing, you will have 30,000 agents who've uploaded their samples, and you can find it based on keyword and take it apart and make it yours. There is literally nothing that you can do in this business that has likely not already been created that you can copy and fix. They actually talk about this at all of the conferences. We are here so you can take my stuff, steal it, and make it yours. Even at, like, I don't have a fancy buyer presentation. I can't give you one. Like, I don't have it. We've established that. Right? But I have a buyer presentation, right? Now I do it now, as Stacy said, now I do it by memory, but that took a long time. But KW will tell you, and we believe the same thing. If I did have the said magical, beautiful PowerPoint thing that I don't have, because my personality has spent 18, 19 years trying to create one and can't seem to bother doing it. So it hasn't affected my sales so far. So I'm moving on. How important could it possibly be in for my personality style? It's not relevant. For other people, maybe it's super relevant. But let's say I have my presentation and I give you my templates. What do you think the odds are that we're going to present that material the same way? You're going to make it yours. You're going to put yourself, Maureen, in that presentation. You're going to change the wording. You're going to change the order. You're going to change what's important to you. You're going to adapt it to your geography, to your specialty, whatever. I'm not threatened by giving you my thing. We're also not sitting with the same person. There's a weird thing in our, not in our industry, in the world, that people interview one person from each brand. You've heard this. Well, I'm meeting with you, and then I'm meeting with someone from Royal LePage, and then I'm meeting someone from whatever, 123 Smith Real Estate, doesn't matter. As if every single human in here is the same. And they've decided that once they've interviewed one KW person, they don't need to interview any other. There's only 300 of you. Clearly, you're all identical, clearly. So the odds of you going head to head against your peer in our office are very, very slim. So we're not competing with each other. You need to have that mindset. And ultimately, the client's going to hire with what the client wants to hire. And if you're not the right fit, you're not the right fit. Next, move on. Do not wallow. There's something that I allow on my team, and you have 30 seconds for it. What do you think it is? 30 seconds. A pity party. You can have your own little personal pity party for 30 seconds, and then you need to move on.
Are you that helpful?
Oh, absolutely. But because next, what did I learn from it? Could I have done better? Yes, that's a conversation to have. But beating yourself up about it, that is not getting you anywhere. You're not going to win every buyer. You're not going to win every listing. Did you go in and deliver value? Yes. Did they appreciate your value? Maybe, maybe not. Did someone else offer a shiny object? Maybe. Next. So being perfect, if that's what you're waiting for, I would suggest you do something else. Because you're never going to be perfect at this. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to buy a washing machine. It's going to happen. Right?
And a bridge.
You haven't bought an appliance at some point, you know. Oh, question.
Cyril has a question.
Yes. Oh, yes, Cyril, hand up. Thank you. I was looking for a chat.
I actually don't have a question. I just want to say that I have to go because I have a showing in 45 minutes.
Excellent. Well, you have a great showing.
Thank you, Anne. And thank you very much for this morning.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being here.
All right.
So when we look at perfection, I want you to be in the moment, the best you can be with what you know now. Do not try to say, I need to know everything Anne Silva knows before I do a listing presentation. Or whoever your mentor is, or whatever, or so-and-so you're comparing yourself to. Please don't do that. You are smart, intelligent, passionate, compassionate people who care about their clients. I know this. And what do you want them to experience? If you were the buyer, what would you want you to tell them? If you've ever purchased in the past with a different experience, what were your pain points? What do you wish someone would have told you? I'll give you an example. Part of my buyer process is that we advise our buyers that their property taxes are going to change to reflect the new purchase price. It's going to be 1.2% of whatever the price is we pay for the house. So please ignore the tax bill that's on a particular site that I cannot name that may start with a B. Okay? That tax bill is no good to you. That's not what you're paying. So during the COVID year, I'm going to say, I'll use 2021 as an example, because I think that was the craziest of all of the years. My team wrote over 900 offers. We did 105 units. We wrote 800 offers that were not accepted or fell because we were competing. There are clients we wrote 20 and 30 and 40 offers for. Okay. So we had 100 clients like who bought or sold houses with us. They bought, and most who sold bought anyway. It is what it is. We did not have one single client contact us when all the hoopla was going on about their taxes going up and assessments going out. And I bought this house and now the taxes are this. Not one, not a single call, because every single client was prepped. They knew exactly what that house was going to cost them when they bought it. And we tell them it takes 6 months to a year for this city to catch up with you, but they will. It's coming. So let's talk about what the real number is.
I've heard of other agents that will put information like that in writing and have their clients acknowledge it, whether it's a signature or an email response back, because their clients forget that they've told them all this important stuff. They've gotten caught.
Well, again, it will depend on, I don't love that personally. I feel like it's a bit of a scapegoat to me.
Yeah.
I have no control over their taxes. They're also, like, I wish I did, but I don't. I know for myself, it's in my little checklist that I go through. I've not done it. Some people want to do it. I think if that maybe that's something that you add to your handout thing as a, FYI, important note, please note. And if you gave them the thing, well, then you gave them the thing. They read it, they didn't read it, you talked about it, you didn't talk about it. But you guys know that I am very passionate about limiting liability. We're all aware of this. That is one of my main roles is to protect your asses in the brokerage. But I also think there's a fine line between giving the optics of my not looking responsible for what I tell you, and I want to cover my ass so much. I know that's a personal choice.
Yeah.
Right.
It seems a bit extreme, but it was just something I had heard.
Yeah.
and-
Well, it's the same, but remember that,
Area.
yeah. maybe, if you've had, you know, if you've had a bad experience or you've had people who've come after you or challenged you, maybe. But again, it's about information. So if we go back to what James was talking about, that was a valuable piece of information that we gave our buyers in their consultation process. But I have no shiny object to show it. But that's value. And our clients were talking to other people. We know, they told us when they were like, yeah, well, we didn't have to worry about that. Our agent prepped us for that. That's value. Right? You know, we set an expectation. When you talk about expectations, our expectation with our buyers is that you are going to do a building inspection, a sewer or septic inspection. You're going to do water tests. You're going to do well flow, if applicable, and you're going to do radon. That is our expectation. And if you want to waive these things, we're going to have a very, very serious conversation about the handiness level and the cash flow. Because unless you've got a bag of money in your mattress, we're doing a septic. Right? But that's the expectations that we set. You know, and if someone says, no, you know, I'm good, blah, 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 okay, but we're gonna have a conversation about it. Part of my script, when I work with any client, buyer or seller, is that I'm not a very good yes man. I'm a terrible yes man, actually, is what I say. Meaning, we're gonna have conversations. If I think that we're offside. You don't have to agree with me, that's fine, but we're gonna talk about it. It's the same conversation about telling your clients that you're going to advise them when we're shopping. And here's another one if you want to, why do you want to meet? In a market where people are confused, people do not understand what they should be paying for a house. Like it's completely overwhelming and completely confusing. Some are priced low, some are priced high, some are going down, some are going up. Some are multiple offers, some sit for 90 days. It's completely confusing. But if you say that you're going to do homework to check that whatever they pay is what it's worth, the sticker price doesn't matter. You could ask $1 for the house. It's still going to sell for market value. So we're going to do some homework and we're going to talk about what the house is really worth and what we think you should pay. You're a grown-up, it's your money, but I'm going to give you some guidance on that. Same conversation we have is if you would like to buy what we call real estate weird. It's literally what we call it. Because I'm one for such fancy words, which is, you know, there's something weird about the house. Like it's weird, like it's bizarre, but you love it. Okay, great. You can buy it. That's fine. But I'm going to tell you that it's weird and that it'll take you longer to sell it when you go to sell it. You want to buy on a main drag, you got kids, be prepared that I'll give you, I don't know how many people know Dartmouth, but Caldwell Road is a perfect example. It's like a freaking highway. I don't sell on Caldwell Road to families. Because their child plays in the front yard. Well, I mean, I will if they want to, but we're going to have this conversation because the kids play in the front yard and the ball rolls down the driveway and you're having heart failure as a parent unless you've got an electric fence to hold them in.
It's like when people buy next to a highway. And then after they've been there for a year, they start complaining to anybody who will listen about how noisy it is.
Yeah.
And they want a wall built. And I'm like, but the highway was there when you bought the house.
But it's real estate. That's real estate weird, right? And maybe it's the perfect house for you and that's great. And we'll talk about the numbers, we'll talk about the value, we'll do the inspections, etc. But I need to prep you that when you go to sell it, less people are going to want to buy it. Right? 1 bedroom up, 2 bedrooms down. Problem. It's not that you're not going to love living here, but it's going to take a lot longer to sell because no one with children under the age of 10 is going to buy this house. That's value. Do you understand where I'm going with this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Don't be a yes man. Do not be an order taker. Ask a bazillion questions. That's your buyer presentation. That's how you close a buyer. So if you've asked all these questions and you've had these conversations in whatever format you choose to do it, in person, on Zoom, with a booklet, with a checklist, with them filling out a form, there's a million ways to do this. And I'm sending you to KW Connect to find the template that works for you. Because all of you are different and are going to want totally different things. So my handing you a template is not, I had one, is not going to help you. But if you do that, when you do go on showings, how many objections do you think you're going to have about the area, the price, the condition? You're just picking the right house. So your odds of writing are higher. You're not gonna show them a house that doesn't have a bus route because they told you they need a bus route. They said they absolutely have to keep their kids in the same school. Well, check the darn school before you book the showing. Don't tell them that they're gonna magically get an exemption to get their kids moved. So when you go and show the house that's in the right side of the street on the thing that gets to the school they want, and, you know, they're not gonna get run over by a truck because they've got small kids and they, you know, want, and it's not beside a highway because they wanna sit on their back deck and have a glass of wine. When they walk in the house, it's gonna be, is it my house? Can I picture my Christmas tree over here? Because the meat is already established. So you will show less houses, you will close quicker, and your conversion rate will be higher. If you do a buyer consult. I don't care how you do the buyer consult. I don't care if it's 1 meeting, 2 meetings, 10 meetings, in person, on Zoom, at a Tim Hortons, I don't care. But if you are not asking questions about what your clients want and need, and you are not asking some other probing questions about timing and their lease and their pre-approval and whatever, you're gonna look at a lot of houses. And they're gonna get frustrated. And they're gonna move on.
Would you take on a buyer that can't answer any of those questions?
No,
You just wouldn't bother.
but they're not qualified buyer. I'd probably keep them in my like lead nurture
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
but I'm not running around
Mm.
showing houses to someone who can't tell me what they're pre-approved for, won't give me any information, won't connect me with their mortgage person, unless I know them and I already know they've got bags of cash or something.
So in that case, if they just can't figure out what they want, I'm moving back to Nova Scotia. I want to live in the city.
Right.
But I also want to live outside the city.
So then you would have in your buyer consultation, you might say, okay, because we don't want to look at 400 houses. You're saying that to them because they don't actually want to look at 400 houses, right?
Right.
And to say, okay, well, let's talk about sort of key areas for the things that matter. So that's where, in my perspective, what I would be doing then is going, okay, if you're not sure about the area, let's talk about the things that matter to you. Do you want to be able to walk to a grocery store? Do you want your kids on the bus? Let's talk about lifestyle. Do you want to drive your kids to every single thing they ever have to do, including visiting every friend? No. Okay, well then we shouldn't look in Porter's Lake. Because if you think that we have bus service there, that is the most hilarious thing in the world. We do have a bus, but. Right, so then you might probe by asking lifestyle questions. Give you an example. Especially from away. I live in the water.
Yeah.
I have $300,000. I'd like to be downtown Halifax. That's,
Yeah.
anyway, moving on. But I want to live on water. And I'll say, okay, that's great. Let's talk about water. And they'll go, okay. Are you thinking ocean or lake? Oh, I don't really care. And I'll say, okay, well, we're gonna talk a little more about that. I want you to close your eyes and I want you to tell me when you get up in the morning and you go out on your back deck, are you sitting and you're looking at the water and it's like glass and you have your cup of tea or your cup of coffee, you can hear the loon. Is that what you're picturing? Or are you looking for surf and smashing? And how do you feel about fog?
Yeah, exactly.
And they go, oh, no, I don't want that. Okay, well then we're looking at lakes. I'm not going to run around and show them oceanfront properties if that's not what they want. Do you want to swim, kayak, blah, blah, blah? Okay, we're not going to the ocean. We're going to a lake. You're helping them to narrow it down. And sometimes what'll happen is you did your consultation. They told you the answers. We think we have it, but when you get out and actually show them this, they can't pull the trigger. So that's when you say, okay, so we have actually looked at everything that actually is like a 9 out of 10 out of your checklist, and it's not ticking the box. We need to go back and look at our checklist. We need to stop. We need to go back and go, okay, clearly there's something about these 10 houses that didn't tick the box. What is it? Here's a simple example. Do you want an eat-in kitchen or a dining room that's separate? Here. You look at 6 houses with a dining room and 4 houses without, and the only ones that they like have a dining room. And then you go, you didn't actually tell me, but I know you actually care about the dining room. Oh, you're right. Oh my God, I didn't even realize that. Because you're listening. Right? Okay, we're at time. That's what I got for you. I actually went the whole 3 hours. God.
Listen, do you do a listing?
That was great.
No.
And so I was just curious, what did you ask? If she does a listing package. Ah,
Thank you.
that's really good.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So if I have a house to sell, I'm gonna get you to sell it.
What I want you guys to remember is that please don't make this into rocket science.
No.
Like, you know the questions you want to ask. Ask them. They didn't hire you because you're cute. I know, it's disappointing, isn't it? KW Connect has a ton of buyer presentations. There are actually, I think there's even some directly through Command that you can go into the My Designs thing as well, right?
Yeah.
You also have access to other ones from another program that I can't mention that Sherry used to do. There's a ton in there. Do not reinvent the wheel, people.
But it is a great excuse.
It is an excellent excuse. Anyway, thank you all very, very much for spending your morning with me.
Thank you.
I know I covered the content in general, but not specifically. So if you do have questions, if you're reading through your material or anything else as you're chewing on this, please don't hesitate to reach out and I will do my very best to get back to you.
Thank you, Anne.
You're so welcome. Thank you. Can't imagine what kind of recording this is gonna be.
I'm gonna go back and watch like other things.
Thank you for my online people. I hope it was valuable and we will see you soon. I have to stop recording.
Thanks, Anne.
My pleasure. Where's my stop recording button?
Into the.
Ah, there it is. Stop recording.
If you want to turn.